You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Welcome to the 42 Cast, your ultimate answer to fandom, geekiness, and everything. As always, I am your host, Nathan, and we have another great episode lined up for you where we are going to talk about The Flash. This time we're talking about the movie version, not the TV version. So a little bit different, but this is supposedly, technically the first DCEU movie, but we're going to get into that on the show because we've been lied to. But before we get into all that, let's meet our cast for this week. So starting off, he is a guy that loves to come in and tell us about all the movies that he absolutely hates. We don't have JD on this one, but Daviar, welcome back to the 42 Cast.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here and always happy to hate. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know what to do without JD on the podcast to be your foil,
especially on this movie. Because I'm going to be more positive than normal, I think.
Oh, okay, all right.
Maybe.
No, that's going to be interesting. All right, yeah. so yeah, what's been going on for you, Daviar? Because it's been a while since you've been on.
Yeah. So life up here in Canada is still good. We're up here doing theater and living in a place where it is windy and chilly at the end of June, so yeah. Making do with that. But so far, life is good, my friends. And
you're not amidst all the wildfires that are spewing smoke into Wisconsin, are you?
I'm 2 hours away from the fires, but you can still smell the smoke where I am and see.
I can smell the smoke where I am, and I think I'm further away than you are.
Yeah. It's legit. So
yeah,
yes, indeed.
Yeah, I didn't realize because I was like, Canada, that's a cold, unhappy place. That's not going to have fire. It's going to have other problems. But
put that on the poster, please. Put that on the poster for Canada. Right. A cold and unhappy place.
I'm in a cold and unhappy place. So, I mean,
Well done. Shout out, Canadians. Sorry. For listening to this. I apologize.
All right. It's good to have you back on the show, Daviar.
Thank you, my friend.
All right. Next up is a man whose claim to fame is that he played a humanoid orca in a D&D game with me, and that is Nate Fenton. How are you doing, Nate?
Good. How you doing, Nathan?
I'm doing all right. So what's been going on for you since the last time you were on?
Oh, well, I started my new job in the tasting room at the distillery I work at. Mm-hmm. It's great. I've discovered my most favorite.
Can you walk at the end of the day?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was on the other side of the glass doing production, and that's all I did was run up and down stairs all day. I actually got a notification on my phone. It's like, we noticed a decrease in the number of steps you take every day. Would you like to decrease your average? I'm like, no. But I figured out my most favorite thing in the world is to tell people how smart I am, which is pretty much what a tour guide is. So it works out well for my ego. I really like it a lot.
Well, very cool. So yeah, gotten up to anything fun, or is it just work stuff?
Well, I don't mean to brag, guys, but I went on a date with a lady.
Oh,
and it went well. She didn't slap me at the end. So
a human lady?
Yes, a human lady did not find me immediately repulsive. It was a big success for the day.
Whoa! Wow! Yeah, no, that's really good, man.
Finally getting back out there.
Right.
Love it.
At 45.
Never too late.
That's what I keep saying.
All right. Well, good for that, and hopefully, things will continue to look up for you in that department. And yeah, it's good to have you back on the show. All right. Next up is the guy that you love to hate. He is my nemesis and Pluto's. It is Ryan. How are you doing, Ryan?
I'm not hanging in there. It's feels like, according to my phone, it feels like 110 degrees here right now. So there are no wildfires. I just feel like I'm in a fire.
Mhm.
But other than that, just getting through my backlog of TV. Maybe I'll even start Black Lightning in a month or two.
You're just taunting me now.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's okay. Yeah, Ryan, you should queue up Inhumans.
Yeah.
Well, are you trying to make Ryan like more upset? Is that like the goal of this?
There was a point when we were talking about like all the stuff he hadn't seen yet, and he was like, "I've still got Inhumans in the queue," and I was like, "No, no, not when there are good shows you haven't watched yet."
It's there. It's on the list, but yeah, I don't know if a list.
I don't think it's there. I don't think Inhumans is streaming anymore. It was streaming on Disney for a while, and Disney cut a lot of stuff. I would be surprised if they kept Inhumans but got rid of the Willow TV show.
Okay, I've got a check now because of our previous podcast about Willow. I've got to see if Inhumans actually is still like. Did Disney think Willow was so bad that it was worse than Inhumans?
Well, it could just also be that
they still have Inhumans.
Cheaper. Yeah,
they still have Inhumans.
That's crazy.
Inhumans still better than the Willow TV show.
Well, having not seen Inhumans, I can't speak to that. But I feel like this isn't fair. I'm in a trap now. I lose whichever way I if I agree with that or I disagree with that, I lose.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is like a no-win situation for you. Like, you should just lay down like your sword and walk away from the fight. Okay, like there's no good outcome. Because no, just don't do it. Turn away from the giant blinking red light. Okay.
I live in a universe where Inhumans, I have no excuse not to watch it. But Star Trek Prodigy is now gone, so I don't know what this is about.
I am so annoyed about that because it was one of those things where I could have prioritized it, but I was like, I'll watch Clone Wars because people have been on my case to watch that for far longer. And then when I'm done with Clone Wars, I'll watch Prodigy. And so we're, midway through Clone Wars. And then it's like, oh, by the way, Paramount Plus is yanking Prodigy. And I'm like, what?
And then they did it like the next day.
Right,
it wasn't
exactly.
even.
This is what the physical media people have been telling us for years. They've been like, don't rely on streaming, buy physical media.
Yep.
I am a big physical media person for exactly this reason.
Yeah.
It literally just goes to show how one person, because the previous CEO of Paramount was like, we want Paramount Plus or CBS All Access to be the Star Trek place with all the Star Trek here in this one place. And now, it's like, whatever else can save us a few bucks, get rid of it. Yeah.
Right. They're actually letting them shop it around to see if like they can have like another like home, like it could possibly be renewed if another streamer wanted to. I don't think that's going to happen, but
I think it might happen only because season 2 is so far along.
Right.
Like,
no. Yeah, season 2 they've already been working, but I mean, I don't think another streamer is going to pick it up and renew them for a third season. Like,
yeah, I don't think Netflix or Hulu is going to pick it up.
But that's okay. I'm still waiting to watch Snowpiercer season 4, which is done and has been for almost a year and still hasn't found because TNT canceled it after it was already done.
Or the back half of the Nevers, whatever.
I'm so frustrated about that.
What's going to happen with that, though, of course, is eventually somebody's going to cancel a show that hasn't found its legs yet, and then it will get some serious fire, probably on a network like Freevee or maybe like the Roku channel or something where they just have commercial interstitials, and it will become a drop dead hit. And then people will go, oh crap, what did we do by letting this go? Which is why, as much as people like to, dunk on the old school network philosophy of ABC, NBC, Fox, and like, the kind of like basic cable channels, they've got their stuff on lock. I mean, Sci-Fi / NBC, they know how to stretch their stuff around and they give their shows enough time to figure out where they're going to be instead of canceling it too soon. And they certainly don't do this weird dumping to make instant profit because they've sunk too much money into too many shows instead of investing in quality. Like, over at Apple, they're doing fine. They're having failures, but they're like, yeah, but we're having a lot more success because we're finding projects that we believe in versus this everything against the wall Netflix mentality and then just kind of eating it at the end of the year.
Well, Snowpiercer was actually on TNT. And when Warner took over, or when Discovery took over Warner, they were like, we don't care that you already made a 4th season and it is complete. We don't want scripted programming on TNT. So, bye.
Yeah. Where's your 600-pound person?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, that's a Warner Brothers thing. They're just, I don't know what the hell's going on with Warner's. Like, ugh.
Well, again, it goes, you can trace it literally to, what's his name, Zaslav or something like that.
Yeah.
It's always one person. Yeah. And he's the same reason, bringing it back to this, he's the same reason we didn't get, Batgirl. So, yeah. It's the same situation.
So you guys got a 5-minute controversy. We just didn't call it that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. Everything went according to plan.
All right. Well, it is good to have you back on the show, Ryan.
Thank you.
And finally, you've heard his voice already. He is the world's foremost Flash fan, and it is Sean. How are you doing, Sean?
Greetings and salutations, Internet. I've seen The Flash. I have thoughts.
Okay. And we'll get to that right in a minute. But first up, Sean, what's been going on for you since the last time you were on, like probably a year ago?
Oh my gosh, it has been a while, hasn't it? Or at least quote unquote last year. Right. A lot of little small projects. Been doing a lot of painting. If you've been following me on any social medias or whatnot, you've probably seen a lot of my paintings have been coming around. The wife and I are looking at a few more shows that we're going to, kind of like just spreading out our pop cycles footprint just a little bit more. We're even thinking of doing one of these like QVC kind of things. I forget what she calls it. It's called like a whatnot or something like that, where we actually like go live and people can shop like while we're live. It's a very weird, cool new concept. And then I'm also doing some writing and some projects for some people. And I'm almost finished with my Burning Gods script Bible that I came up with the Alien RPG, because I am way too ambitious and it's taken me 13 months to put it together. But it encapsulates about 10 different movie franchises, because I just decided to say, screw it, this is for me and I'm going to release it for free. So I don't care about who owns what property. Blade Runner lives here. Here's Predator, Soldier, Outland. RoboCop's in it. I don't care. Like, I just went for it and I made it all make sense. And I'm like, and I show it to people and they're like, you crazy bastard, you did it. Like, I feel like they look at it and I'm Hammond from Jurassic Park and they're Jeff Goldblum. Like, oh no, he actually pulled this off.
Did you stop to think if you should do it?
Exactly. And you know what? Yes, I should have done this, because Alien is one of my deep, dark obsessions as far as fandoms that I never get to talk about. And I have not talked about it for far too long. So I finally decided to just unload over the last year and change. And this is the result. And now you all have to suffer with me.
And
the compulsion to change your favorite IPs into an RPG will always find a way.
Yeah, always.
And besides Nate, life finds a way.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry, I stepped on you there, Nathan.
So, all right. Well, it's good to have you back on the show, Sean.
Well, glad to be here.
All right. So normally we'd have our 5-minute controversy, but you kind of got one already. And with 4 guests on the podcast, I've just stopped doing the controversies because we end up talking over a long time about something other than our topic. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to pause for a promo from another fine podcast, and then we are going to come right back to talk about The Flash.
Hi, this is Siri. I would never ever listen to the Earth Station 1 podcast. Who the heck says howdy anyway? Why don't you listen to Chris Hardwick instead? I can get you his information. The Nerdist is everywhere anyway, haha. That was a joke. The Earth Station 1 podcast. It's time to let your inner geek out to play. You can find them at www.earthstation1.com or up on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or wherever fine podcasts are found. Peace, and we're done.
And we're back. And like we mentioned, we are talking about The Flash this time. The movie that we were told by Tom Cruise is the greatest superhero movie of all time. So...
He said that?
Yes, he is quoted as saying it is the greatest superhero movie of all time.
I didn't realize Scientology.
He's on early show.
But did he say it from standing on top of a sofa? Because if not, it doesn't count.
That's not really the exclamation point there.
Yeah. So I guess let's just start at like sort of the top level here. And people listening can't see this, but Daviar is wearing a Blue Beetle shirt, and because he's wearing a Blue Beetle shirt, I am going to call on him first. Daviar, tell us your feelings about The Flash. Just high level. Just very short.
Yeah.
About this movie.
Context, The Flash is one of my favorite superhero characters. Might be my number one of all time.
Ooh, you and Sean are going to have to fight.
Yes.
Why? I don't have to prove myself to anybody. If he wants to love The Flash and have it be his favorite character, look, there's room for everybody in the Flash family. You know this about me.
The Flash, so I've been waiting for this movie for years. Internet, the movie is not as bad as you've heard, but it's also not good. It is a nice middle ground film, better than several of the Marvel movies we've gotten of late. So there's a lot of things to talk about, and I can't wait for us to get into it, but it's a nice middle ground movie that I might watch again on video, but won't quite go back to often in the future.
Okay. All right, I will say this, just teeing off of what you said about just the movie, like in its existence. I never thought we were going to get this movie because, it was part of that press release, like in 2015, where they were like planning out to 2020. And, the Flash movie was supposed to be early 2018. For those keeping track at home, this was March 2018 was the original date for the Flash movie, and it just hit delay after delay, director after director, and it was just like, this movie's never going to happen. So the fact that it did happen is kind of amazing in and of itself, and it is the last of those ones they announced that is actually going to see the light of day, because Justice League 2, Cyborg, and Green Lantern, which was originally a movie before it was an HBO Max show, before it was now part of the DCEU and probably on Max, but who knows, they're exploring options. But those three things are never going to happen. So we did get sort of the last gasp of that original plan here. But Ryan, what are your sort of high level thoughts about The Flash?
Well, I think what you need to know about this movie is that it is one of four movie projects that were greenlit and near completion, if not fully complete, when they announced that they're going to scrap the entire DCEU and come out with the DCU. Now, I know you said this was part of the DCU. I didn't read that. I haven't seen that. I don't.
Well, I mean, what Gunn announced was that the Flash is the transition, right? Is the transition, and so everybody's expectation was that the movie would end in the DC, that's the final iteration, but it doesn't.
The Flash is like Infinity War, because that's the transition, right? We built up Iron Man all the way from beginning to end, and this is the capstone of the DCU so far.
No, I would say the Flash is the Flash of the DCU, and as we know, there are so many multiverses with so many different Flashes. I would like to call this the end of the Snyderverse, and whatever happens next is what happens next. Like, this
I'm happy to
just...
see that.
Absolutely, there's. I don't see that there could be any connection between this and whatever happens in the DCU. If for no other reason, just the casting alone, there's no way they're going forward with this cast. For one thing, we obviously know they're not. Just the way it ended, even there's no way they're going
right, and that was the big surprise was because like I said, like everything that had been announced made it sound like, and even with the fact that they kept saying like, no, Ezra Miller will be the Flash and anything we do in the future, like both Gunn and Andy Muschietti, however you pronounce his name.
Nailed it.
Both said like Ezra Miller will be the Flash. Now, of course, with the way it's performed at the box office, maybe those narratives are all going to change, but I'm just saying that was they were they were doubling down on that. So
they meant that the same way they meant that. Oh yeah, Shazam could show up in the DC. They're just literally doing everything they can not to tank the few projects they still have coming. Yeah. So this is a movie with the Flash that exists.
This is a movie. That is correct.
Yes,
this is
a film
a movie
you can see in the theater. It actually did have a few moments. I'm not going to completely hate on it. But everything that was wrong with it just was pulling it down so much that those few bright spots couldn't even see the light of day.
Yep. All right, Nate.
I had, a mixed expectations going into this. I really didn't want to take into account, I wanted to separate the actor from the artist from the art. But I was watching this movie, and Ezra Miller's performance as Barry Allen made me feel kind of icky, because we know Ezra Miller has some mental health issues that he's struggling with currently. And I kind of felt like that came through in the Barry Allen character. Like it was turned up to 11, as opposed to the Justice League movie where he's just kind of twitchy. This was full on. It made me feel uncomfortable. It took me out of the movie. It was one of my biggest gripes. But overall, I think there was some amazing casting. I think the overall plot for a Flash movie made sense. It didn't. There's not a lot of plot holes in this, and it carried with it a lot of themes that we've seen in the comic books, the cartoon, the WB Justice League cartoon, and also the Arrowverse Flash. So I felt like they really pulled from all of those things, and I felt like that was good. There was just some writing issues, the visual effects and everything that just sort of dragged this movie down, where it could have been a good movie at a $250 million budget or whatever. It's just, it was disappointing. And that's what made me mad, is this could have been so great, and they kind of just fumbled the ball.
All right. We're going to come back to several of those things.
Yeah.
All right, Sean.
Oh God. You just want my topmost level thoughts?
Yes.
Yeah. Topmost level thoughts. As an adaptation of Flashpoint, they pretty much nailed it right on the money. I think Ezra Miller is the weakest part of the story, because Ezra Miller was horribly miscast in the very first appearance of the Flash, all the way back when they started building up the Snyderverse. And I feel that those choices made almost a decade ago have had echoes that have continued down the line. With that said, this is a wonderful hurrah of looking at everything that has kind of come before, that says everything that is kind of happening. And the thing that upsets me the most as a fan of DC, because as Nathan and I have discussed many times in public and in private, I am more of a DC person than I am a Marvel person, even though I love both. I in our house, we accept both religions. I am horribly upset at the fact that Marvel has beaten DC yet again to the punch of, hey, we have a multiverse. Hey, you can meet yourself. Hey, you can look different. And not only did they beat them to the punch, they did it better. And I hate that, because these are easy wins. If they would have come out with Flash when they were supposed to, if they would have stayed on target when they were supposed to, if they would have done what they were supposed to, this movie, I think, would have been far more well received. But because of delays, because of cast members, because of these issues, and then realizing, oh, if we're going to do this, we have to do it right. By the time they were able to get the ship just level, a solid level, not excellent, not bad, just good. You have basically, the entire Avengers story wraps up. You have Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse, and then you have all of the controversies that can come up, and then you look at these wonderful representations of, hey, these are stories and beats that you have seen in these other movies that are done really, really well, And here's the Flash, and the Flash did it first. The Flash did it well. The Flash did it, in kind of incredibly inventive ways back when nobody was thinking about this. And we were even adapting it before they made these movies, but we fumbled at the 1 yard line and somehow we got a safety. I don't know how you run a football back 99 yards and get tackled in your own infield when you're at the finish line, but somehow we did that twice. And I can never forgive them for doing that. But considering that this is also the swan song of the Snyderverse, I feel like it is on brand. Or at least part of the swan song, because I think the official handoff, the true handoff is Blue Beetle. So I think Blue Beetle is what they're considering the beginning of the new DC. So like the Aquaman movie, I think that's still considered that's kind of like an ellipses afterwards. I don't think Momoa is actually still coming over or not. They keep talking about it, but I'm just like, I don't think so. I think this is a goodbye to everything that's come before, and they're just trying to wipe the slate clean. So in that regard, I think they did a pretty good job. But I can't say anymore without going into the Barryisms, because I have so much. It's already been said that Miller, they had some problems that clearly were coming through on the character. They truly fumbled. Like, me, I'm not a fan of Barry Allen. I think Barry Allen's best contribution to comic books was dying. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, he becomes the unattainable plateau that even Clark Kent's like, he was the best of us and we'll never be as good as Barry. And nobody's going to say that about this Barry Allen. Like, it is not. We'll get into it.
A lot of adaptations want to have Wally but call him Barry, and they do a weird fusion thing, and like it doesn't work when you fuse them.
And then we're not even getting to the power problem yet, or the fact that they didn't credit like the most like influential like creators of the Flash, which really pisses me off. But again, we'll get into that. So.
Right. Yeah. So like my thoughts on this is a movie that feels to me like you can even like as you're watching it, you can be like, wow, this seems like 50 different scripts all layered on top of each other. Like you can tell that this is a movie that's been in development for a long time, and a lot of people have made a pass at it because there's so many things that don't feel like they stick together well. Like this could have been a way tighter movie, but they felt the need to include all these people from like Barry's personal life that don't have anything to do with the movie. Like I'm talking about like his friends at work and Iris and all of that. But that's because they just felt the need that, we cast these people a long time ago, back when we thought that the Flash movie would be like a standalone like Flash movie and not like a Flashpoint movie. And so like we gotta just pay that off by giving them like room in the script, even though it feels like a distraction when they're dealing with them in both timelines. And it's like it could be a far tighter, more focused story about Barry and what happened with his mom and everything else, and it's just like it was difficult moving
honestly until you just said his friends at work. I forgot those characters existed. Right. You just reminded me of their scenes, and then they disappear from the movie, never to reappear, have no consequence or whatever. They don't even tell an interesting part of the story. They say Barry Allen's weird and doesn't make a lot of friends.
Well, they show up in the alternate timeline as the roommates and stuff, and like,
and then it just doesn't make any sense. Like
Marty McFly. But,
The only reason I remember them at all is because it literally took me the entire movie to figure out that the woman that plays Patty was also in Dairy Girls. And it was just that was really what I found most
like, where have I seen this? Where's this young lady? Where have I seen her before?
And here's the thing. So wasn't it James Wan who was originally attached to direct The Flash, and then he moved over to Aquaman? And the thing that he said was, I wanted to make a lighthearted, fun movie, and I guess I'm not allowed to do that. And then he made Aquaman, which Aquaman's not my favorite superhero movie of all time or anything, but I really enjoyed Aquaman. It was a big, larger-than-life fun movie, right?
Yeah.
But The Flash could have been fun. I didn't feel the fun in this movie. Like even when there are cool things happening, there were some cool things happening, especially in the second half. And I feel like the movie does improve a lot in the second half. Like but it never felt like fun. And that's part of my problem with this movie.
That's because that's what they've done since Batman versus Superman, they've swung for the fences. They throw everything with their very first movie. This, this was originally titled Flashpoint, and then they relabeled it Flash. But it wasn't really a Flash movie. I mean, Flash was in it, and Flash was in every scene, sure, but it wasn't. It should have been a movie that introduced us to the Flash and the Flash's world, and it fleshed it out.
I think the one version was supposed to be that, and then after he left is when they rebranded it as Flashpoint, and then they said, no, we're still going to call it the Flash, but we are still adapting Flashpoint. So
right,
exactly. It's because there's this unwritten rule that all the DCEU movies had to, let's do Death of Superman, let's do everything immediately in the very first outing. So of course they were going to retool it for Flashpoint, and then someone's like, hey, Michael Keaton, and then it got away from any sort of possibility.
We're doing full spoilers on this, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's full spoilers. And to tee off what Ryan was saying, though, I agree, because I feel like we don't know Barry Allen well enough to do this movie, and that's part of the problem with just Justice League to go on before this. Like there, and I liked present time Barry a lot more in this than I liked him in Justice League. I will say that.
Oh my God, yes. You know what? Modern Miller, the more wizened Barry. Actually, I was like, he's starting to see it. He's starting to get why he's annoying people. Like, he understands why he's annoying. He understands the weight of the responsibility, and he understands how truly he has screwed up. And I was like, that all worked. And I was like, great, if we had more of that. But then they're like, but what if he ran around with himself for the entire movie and he got to be the annoying version of himself too? So all of that really good, like, acting that you get, from this one actor, you then have a whole nother performance that's basically saying, yeah, but they're also a schmuck. And you just want to strangle the younger version. Like, just, oh my God. But again, we're going to get into spoiler territory quick. Please go ahead. I'm good.
Well, to that point, because I think you said earlier how Ezra was like the weakest link in the movie, and for me, I actually disagree, because I think the only reason that Ezra might appear weak is because of how the movie is structured. I actually think the actor was capable. If they would have had a Flash-centered movie about his journey, I think he could have given a great performance, because he has killer scenes in this movie. He really does.
Sure. And he really does.
And I think if they would allow this to be a movie about him, we could have seen him grow from the fidgety, like neurotic person into the hero that Barry Allen is supposed to be towards the end of the movie. I think that would have been an awesome transition that could have got us to know who this character is, because to Nathan's point, we haven't had a chance to get to know him yet and to understand what his ills are, to see what his growth is. So I think that's one of the movie's great shortcomings with that character.
Yeah, it's funny, Devore. I was thinking about this, and it's really funny because I agree with you on that, especially on the modern Barry. I'm really happy with modern Barry. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of okay with where they're going. He's still a little annoying, but as you see him playing, the 2018 version of himself, I'm like, ooh, yeah, like you could see the growth that he's had. And I think this is one of the only times in the history of movies where you could say, and I'm just going to use Ezra Miller by name because it's the only way I can explain this. Ezra Miller's performance would have been great if it wasn't for Ezra Miller hamstringing them at every scene. So, like, Ezra Miller modern, I love him. I love them. I thought they did a pretty good job. Ezra Miller as young 18-year-old Barry, terrible. Please stop. So they were self-sabotaging, but that was the role. So it's funny that they did a good job portraying both versions of themselves, right? But somehow you're in this, it's like this weird snake eating his own tail thing where, like, Ezra Miller did a great job in making himself so annoying that he then screwed up his own really good performance. And I'm like, which, to be fair, is very on brand for Flashpoint.
Well, yeah, and it was a weird thing of just like, since we don't know about Barry's origin and we can't expect that people have seen the Flash TV show, we've got to show the origin. So it's like we're trying to do this like late stage Barry Allen story with the Flashpoint and the time travel, but we're also giving you the origin of the Flash too, and this weird convoluted way.
Which is weird because we're always complaining about enough of the origin stories. No more Martha's pearls being pulled off her neck, but for the Flash, like, you gotta get there because not everyone knows the Flash.
No, you don't. You do not have to do. I'm sorry. I hate to run you off the road, and I'll tell you why. Let's talk about this for just one moment here. How many people here actually know Flash's origin story? Like, are we all here fairly confident with Flash's origin story?
Yeah, Barry and Wally.
Mm-hmm. Right. How many people actually know what happens to Barry Barry Allen's mom and dad?
Like of us? Okay, or in general?
No, like in general, like in this group. Like who actually knows what happens with Barry Allen's mom and dad?
Well, we're doing a podcast on the Flash, so of course we're going to know.
No, I don't think we do.
I know, but why don't you tell me? Because I don't think you know.
Is the answer different if you're pre-crisis, post-crisis, New 52? Like,
yeah, I mean...
The answer is this. Pre-Flash Rebirth / Flashpoint, so we're talking circa 2010, 2009.
I mean, his dad was framed or wrongly convicted for killing his own mom.
Right. That only came out in like the last 14 years. Prior to that, Barry Allen had a perfectly normal, everyday, average, wonderful childhood. He was not driven by rage, fear, sadness, loneliness, awkwardness, or anything. He was driven by science. He was driven by curiosity. He was driven by believing in the best. He was made during the rocket age of the 20th century. He was the embodiment of us trying to go to the moon. He wasn't a person who was hamstrung by a traumatic event. He was a person who believed that we could be better. And that was who Barry Allen was until they decided to bring him out of the universe. And Jeff effing Johns, who is responsible for some of the greatest Flash stories of all time, and also completely, and I know we can't curse on this, so just fill in the blank. Blankety blank blank, blank blank, right up his blank blank. The Flash by killing off his mom because he had to have an origin story why he wanted to be a hero. No, he did not. He had his origin story. He believed in science. He believed in being better. He just happened to be really focused, and he got doused by lightning. And that stupid idiot, because he didn't want to go on a date with Iris West because he wanted to finish a science project, got superpowers. That's his origin story. He's a geek. And they said, you know what? What if we just murder his mom for no reason whatsoever? It's basically
just like fridge his mom. Yeah.
Yes, they fridged his mom, and then they framed his dad. And that has been every adaptation of Barry Allen since. It's crap. It is complete crap. And I hate it. And I am mad about it. And I am not okay with it because we did not need an origin story. We did not need to have a Flashpoint. If you need him to change something, have him realize that something is happening in the present. Bruce Wayne gets killed. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman gets killed. Something happens where he has to go back to 2018 or 2013, right where Zod is going to show up, and he's got to fix something there, and he breaks the timeline. Have that be your Flashpoint, where you don't have to bring in his mom. He doesn't have to have this trauma built into him because not every superhero is built from trauma.
But Sean, only Batman movies are good, so therefore all superhero movies must be like Batman.
But that's the thing, though, is that even if you didn't bring the mom angle into it, you still got three Bruce Waynes in this. You got 3 Batman. You got plenty of Batman Mama Death. You don't need more Mama Death.
I know. Jesus, I'm just saying the thing that always because that's the thing that Warner Brothers has believed deep in their hearts since 1989 that only Batman movies can do well.
Reboot.
And so
I'm sorry, guys.
I also think it's the cynicism of a modern audience because I also think there has to be a reason why people believe that someone would get superpowers and not use them for abject evil and not use them for personal gain. And I think the sense of the general thinking is there has to be a personal tragedy that helps you use your powers for good. My mom died. I have to avenge that and save my dad. Or my uncle died because I didn't use my powers for good. There has to be a reason to motivate someone to use their powers than for a reason that 99% of us would use it for, which would be to get rich and to get famous. And so
I disagree with that.
If that person is not doing that, why? And
I agree with you that Hollywood and writers kind of believe that their audience needs that. But I think Captain America and, Superman non-Snyder version show us that, you don't need tragedy to compel you to be good.
But to that
even Hal Jordan was just a test pilot. You know, he's just an adrenaline junkie.
Ryan, what was the last Superman movie that did well at the box office?
Because to that point,
Superman 3.
Yeah, I was going to say the one with Richard Pryor, Superman 3, right? Yeah. Let's be fair, it's much more of a Richard Pryor movie than it is a Superman movie, and that's not dunking on Richard Pryor. He's hilarious in that movie. But that's a completely different vibe.
Right. I'm just saying that, like, that's the thing. Like, the studio execs don't look at that historical type stuff. It's like, that was a long time ago. Like, what's selling now?
But then they also need to look at, when people think of Superman, who do they think of? They don't think of the more modern. They still think of Christopher Reeve. You know, I'm sorry, they just do. You know, like, he's their icon. Like, one thing I love, and I love this because they proved something that the man said years ago and has always proven true. Every other person has had to have been announced that they were Batman. I never did. I just walked into the room and they said, holy shit, you're Batman. And that man was Adam West. And his cameo is a blink and you'll miss it moment in this movie. And you basically hear him and you're like, oh, and you get tingles because you hear Adam West. And you're like, yeah. Adam West didn't have to show his CGI face for you to know that Adam West is Batman.
I will say I was a little more excited about the Nick Cage.
Okay, that was because they had the absolute temerity to completely adapt that one scene that Kevin Smith has talked about for 25 years.
Brilliant.
And just said, we're going to now show you what Kevin Smith had envisioned. And you know what? I kind of want to see it a little bit.
I like it.
I don't like it. I got to be honest. I'm like, if that had happened in the 90s, I totally would have showed up to that movie. I would have seen that movie, man. I would have been there.
And the special effects would have looked just as good.
I will point out that apparently this conversation has gotten too hot for Ryan because he is no longer here.
He's like, that's it, I'm out.
Sorry, Ryan. We apologize.
I'm sorry. It was my rage about the killing of because Nate was going like, oh, well, you got to do the origin and show his mom. And I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, I just want to shake the planet. Like, they added this in 15 years ago and it was.
I actually meant just like he got covered in chemicals and then struck by lightning. Like, it's such a classic, like, Silver Age origin story.
Just wind him up and watch him go.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't referring to his mom at all. I just was referring to like how he got super speed.
Nathan's been waiting for. He knew I was going to have some. I was going to have some heated because I've been mad about the killing of his mom for a long time. Since they introduced that plot point, I thought it was the dumbest thing in the world. Because, again, I think about it and I go, not everybody is driven. Like, this is something I've noticed, especially about, like, the last 25 years of modern fiction. We had the idea of comics. We then expanded the idea of the superhero. We then went way into the camp factor. And then we went to this kind of dissecting of it. And then we've done this really interesting kind of lampooning and really kind of breaking down the myth of what a superhero is. And then we said, well, what if we made it evil? Like, everything is, well, what if we make this evil? Like, everything that's popular these days, like, there's an entire line of comics in DC called One Bad Day. And it's about all you need is one bad day to become a villain. And I'm like, no, you don't. It is a causal effect that builds up because nobody right now wants to start to embrace the fact that we are better. We can be better. And the Flash has always been a character who has been something to strive for, not something to react to. And that's something I think that they still haven't gotten on the head. And it really, really bothers me because of the fact that, fact of the matter is, when I listen to people in social media, on media, out there in the world talk about heroes or talk about the stories that they love, it's always dark. It's always stuff that, oh, that was really twisted, blah, blah. But if you talk to people one-on-one or in private or even in a smaller gathering like this, people are usually optimistic. People usually are like, this is actually a pretty positive thing. But we never see that reflected in our fiction. And it goes back to a problem that I've had all the way back from Man of Steel when the Snyderverse started. You can ask a really difficult question, but you rarely give a very good answer. And I think that's a problem that we have right now. We're really good at pointing out like issues. We're really good at pointing out, well, this is why the superhero would never work. ... But we never say, but this is why they still can. You know, we talk about the fact, when was the last successful Superman movie, right? When he was basically, you know, all good. We didn't have to give a reason, right? But we don't say, well, why does that work? And of course, like, let's be fair. I mean, Christopher Reeve basically just him being able to act from sitting up straight and go. I mean, the man literally just embodied Superman. I mean, you have to find that kind of presence. That's a given. But you can make a modern movie that is optimistic, but still ask really difficult questions. And honestly, I think this movie did a fairly decent job of flying right into the face of that and saying, there's got to be a difficult choice, but we could still be optimistic about it. Like this is one of the more optimistic DC movies when you really look at it, because he's like, I see it. I get it now. I get what's happening.
Well, and that he's still able to use what he was trying to do to create a good outcome for his father. It's just not the thing that he, the thing that he wanted to do, didn't work. It caused too much of a disruption and affected too many things. Right.
So I'm sorry, I will go on rants, and Nathan knows that. I apologize, gentlemen. I now yield the rest of my time for the next 10 minutes to you fine folks, and I'm going to shut up.
Okay. So, all right. So there's so many ways to go with this one.
I'm sorry. I know. I derailed. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
Well, I heard in an interview that the director said that the CGI was supposed to look bad.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's talk about
can
the
we
CGI.
Can we address the CGI?
Let's talk about the CGI.
Let's
modeling people's legs moving, like we just don't know how to do that.
I don't have a problem with the Speed Force and with the stuff we saw in the Speed Force. And I know some people don't like it.
Fine.
Okay, because I know a lot of people, because, like some of the images when they're showing like the timeline and you see like just all the still images of,
Yeah, and it's like a Coliseum.
Right.
This time is a flat disc. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, that was
cool. What is name for like time travel, the chrono.
I'm talking about the opening sequence with Baby Shower, which was a joke that I would have laughed at. But the baby shower scene, just him doing splits and the that was just that was a hard scene to swallow. There were so many good gags in it that could have worked. They were just so close, but the CGI, I mean, the babies look like the dancing babies from Howling Field.
Yeah. There's a reason you never put baby. You rarely see like babies and like
CGI babies
like that, because it's kind of tasteless, and so you're already kind of fighting an uphill battle. So the tastelessness of the gag with the horribleness of the CGI and how bad the babies looked, and then with the kind of the dumb ways that he kind of stayed.
I mean, wouldn't it have been better with maybe cancer kids?
Yeah,
because then you could have had 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. Bald, no eyebrows, and they're falling, and then he could have done more fun stuff with that. But I just felt like every time he touched a baby in the Speed Force, I'm like, you're gonna snap that baby's neck. I was genuinely concerned about the safety of the babies.
The whole putting babies in danger thing is something like my wife gets a really bad reaction to it, and I know a lot of people who do, and it just didn't seem like the right choice, especially when our gag is, oh look, Barry isn't saving them, he's going to eat a snack or whatever. And I get what they were trying to do, I get the humor they were going for, but it just felt really uncomfortable and kind of
there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. What if the vending machine broke as it came out and it's raining snacks, and as he's saving kids, he's cramming his mouth, and it's kids, not babies. I don't know. It just felt like a bad dead baby joke.
Well, and the BS about that was that the whole point of him eating was because he was running low on just energy, and so he couldn't keep up his speed. So he has to eat to keep up his speed. But we never see that again through the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, but that scene is the only scene where we see him not eating being a factor in him being to maintain speed.
Hey, he topped up, so he didn't need to eat again the rest of the movie.
Yeah. he does OMAD. He does that 1 meal a day thing, and yeah.
But yeah, just inconsistencies of what this moment is about. So the whole reason they even had that is to set that up. So it was a tasteless moment with the scene that didn't pay off later. So again, it ended up just being pointless.
John, rebuttal.
No. Ryan deserves the platform first, because I have rebuttals.
Okay.
Agreement.
Agreement. Baby shower.
I have agreements. I have thoughts, but please, Ryan.
Okay. like everything with this movie, it's complicated. It's nuanced. With respect to the CG in general, I didn't hate it. The running seemed a little weird, and I actually don't think it worked if you think about the physics of it for a minute. But at the same time,
you don't think the slow motion running while he's being dragged across the ground, like by some sort of like like an app, like a clip art app, was wasn't about stupid?
Yeah, I mean, the truth of the matter is, until someone can actually run that fast, we don't know what it's really going to look like, right?
Yeah.
So I just kind of ignored the running aspect, but the baby scene. The problem was for me is this movie exists in the remains of the Snyderverse, and I still have PTSD from Man of Steel, and so
the bus full of kids.
I think that was Batman versus. Was that? Oh yeah,
no, that was Man of Steel.
I meant Metropolis. The disaster porn of Metropolis. Yeah. So there's a literal part of me. There's like 5% of me watching this thinking, maybe they're actually going to kill babies, and that's not what I want to feel, when watching this. I didn't breathe. I didn't really relax in that scene and enjoy that scene until I did see the therapy dog, until I did see that tongue hanging out of that mouth, and then I thought, okay, I can laugh at this. Okay, it's gonna be okay. But yeah, up until then, I just didn't really enjoy that scene at all.
Okay, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, take it.
Class is in session. First, Barry Allen does not need to refuel because Barry Allen generates the Speed Force because he's the beginning of the Speed Force. So the fact that they gave him Wally West's hang-up that he eventually got over after a couple of years of using super speed was just dumb, okay? 2, they actually did keep up with him having to eat the entire time because Barry 1, we'll call him Barry Prime, kept eating all the time until he gave it to Barry 2. Barry 2 then was eating all the time. He ate all of Bruce's noodles. He then, when he overheard about the death of the mom, he was eating a banana. He was constantly eating low-key when nobody was paying attention.
Okay.
When he was sleeping in the Batmobile, he had like a whole bag of it looked like marshmallows or something.
I think it was ice cream bars. I think it was ice cream bars
or something. But he was in a sugar coma, holding on to it. So as far as the consistency of the power, they actually kept it going. I say this because I want it to be as fresh as possible for this. So I literally watched this movie today.
Okay.
Now, this is something that we have not talked about yet. Nathan knows I've been a fan of The Flash since I was 6 years old, which is why we always joke that I like to call myself the world's foremost Flash fan, because I have been a fan of The Flash so freaking long before people, I was telling people about The Flash, they're like, you stupid. And I'm like, one day you're going to see he's awesome. I'm still waiting for that day to happen, but it's going to happen. But no, there's a part of me that has always been just genetically predisposed to enjoying this character. The fact that it took me until I knew I was going to have to record this podcast to get me into a theater should tell you everything about my trepidation about this movie. The fact that I'm coming out and actually saying, hey, this was actually pretty solid, is a huge win for them in my book, because I came in with negative scores walking into that theater. I came out, if you're in the positives in my line on this one, you did pretty well. And as far as the baby scene specifically, running up to it, I really was angry about everything about that scene except for the babies and the dog. I hated the fact that he was waiting on food. I hated how they portrayed super speed, because Zack Snyder did that stupid gliding super speed thing. Mm-hmm. We've seen super speed in so many different ways, and the only person who's ever gotten it remotely right, it looks like, is what Quicksilver in Age of Apocalypse and Days of Future Past. Yeah. That's it. Those are the only 2 times I really, from the Flash's perspective, have felt like we've gotten a pretty decent look at what super speed would look like if you were able to keep up with him in hyperspeed. Beyond that, I look at the Flash TV show and I'm like, okay, this is the CG they can get away with for a TV show budget. I look at the movie and I'm like, okay, so that's the CG they can get away with on a TV show budget. And I just kind of accept that they're not going, you can't do a Flash movie without just a butt ton of money to just focus directly on super speed. So I'm just I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting here and I'm watching the ridiculous long stride Speed Force thing. And I'm like, okay, we're in the Snyderverse. At least he's not doing Blue Lightning anymore when he's in the costume. Thank God. At least his lightning's the right color now. He's only blue lightning.
I did think about that as I was watching. Like, oh, Sean's going to be happy. It's not blue.
I got super happy when he started running around. But I like the fact that they were consistent on at least explaining that he's learned how to discharge it. So, and okay, I'm sorry. I know we're talking about the baby scene. We're talking about powers now, so you just got to give me a second. Because this is actually something I would like to give the people credit for in the visual department and Muschietti for actually thinking about this. They said very clearly that Barry has figured out how to make a suit that could disperse the friction without him overcharging and having an electrical discharge. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they show later on in the movie when Barry too creates his own suit. He has some resistance, but he can't negate it yet. So he still has the blue lightning. Mm-hmm. And that means that when we see him in Justice League, when we see him in his first few appearances, Barry hasn't gotten his knack down yet. He's still making raw lightning. The gold lightning is him safely dispersing it without it causing problems. And I'm like, aha, that's cool. So when he's outside the suit, it's just like lightning, like you would see in the sky. When it's yellow, it's safe lightning. And I'm like, okay, they at least visually gave me a clue to understand why the lightning is different. And the fact that they actually had them both in there, I was like, cool. But I also know the reason why they did that.
I think you're giving him too much credit on that one. Yeah,
no. But I also know the reason why they came up with this BS explanation as to why this worked is because they knew at one point they were going to have two Flashes in the same scene running around, and they need to be able to differentiate between A and B.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So they need to have two different color lightning.
That's what it really was about.
Well, I mean, I think that it's because they heard that Sean was unhappy with it in Justice League, and they were like, "We got to correct this."
They're like, "Hold on,
the actual
guys."
movie.
I mean,
the number
the
one
first part of
Flash
that, Sean, is way too
like
inside baseball for the audience.
No. I don't think it is, because when you bring on the world's foremost Flash fan, you're going to get inside baseball. I'm going to tell you about their batting stats. I'm going to tell you about their origin stories. I'm going to tell you why that dog was the first thing I talked about when I got out of the theater, and I told my wife, because I knew that telling her the dog story about the end credits was going to make her watch this movie. I'm like, here's the funny part. Complain about the CG all you want to. Those end credits with that dog for those 2 minutes where he's just falling in slow-mo and you get to see that scene from his point of view was worth every damn cent that they spent on it. I laughed my butt off the entire time. Now,
it wasn't, for me, it wasn't everybody looked like a Ken doll. It was the physics of the limbs. Right. Just Barry Allen had these
spaghetti arms.
6 spaghetti arms. He looked like an action figure doing splits over stuff. Like, and I'm like, what? Nobody does Van Damme splits like that. Like, they're just perfectly straight. Like, now, he looked like an action figure, like someone was just playing with an action figure running him, and it just drew me out instead of doing realistic movements.
I think something that Muschietti did is when he realized how over budget they were, when he realized because of COVID how much money that they had racked up, how much interest had been put up on this movie, he realized that the special effects budget was going to be a lot smaller. And then Warner Brothers was going to put more money into it because they're like, yeah, we're bringing in Michael Keaton, because rumor has it he wasn't originally going to be in it. And they're like, yeah, we got to fix this. So they started to basically, during COVID, realize we got to fix this. And they put more money into it. So I think Muschietti at some point said, what if, since we're kind of being a little more silly and we're embracing kind of like the entirety of DC up until this point, why don't I just make it look a little goofy? And we just embrace the goofiness for this movie, because it is incredibly consistent through the film, but that consistency is not at a high level. It's like at a mid-5, you know? Like,
yeah.
It's passable for TV.
I don't know. I think She-Hulk CGI was better.
I think She-Hulk.
Let's not be.
I'm not being hyperbolic.
Right.
No, I think She-Hulk actually had really good. I think She-Hulk had really good CGI. Yeah.
Wait.
It was just the texturing. The texturing didn't work. You needed the supercomputers to chew on that texturing and feathering of the faces and the clothing. They just all looked like they were action figures.
I might actually agree with Sean to an extent here, because I feel like Supergirl, the CG on her was absolutely fine.
Yeah, she was outstanding. That was probably the highlight of the whole movie. It was like
a conscious choice.
With Sasha, she was amazing.
Yeah. So it felt like it was a conscious choice to make Barry look a little fake.
Yeah. Okay. So now we've gotten all the super speed stuff. Let's actually talk about the substance of the scene.
Okay.
I hate the fact that Barry was having to eat because, again, that's not his shtick. He would never have had to have done that. That's a Wally power. They keep trying to make Barry Allen into Wally, and just make him into Wally. If you're going to do it, okay?
Wally, do Wally. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to do Wally. That's fine. We can have that. Hell, have Wally make Flashpoint happen where he tries to save Barry in the past. That would have been an interesting story. You find out he's actually the second Flash. Whatever, I don't care. But point is that
Ezra Miller is Wally and Grant Gustin is Barry.
That would have been an interesting twist, But regardless, this is the world that we live in at this particular moment. These were the choices that were made. I love the fact that, okay, bad taste of babies falling out the side of the building, notwithstanding. You have made this into a scene. You're putting this into the movie. You now have to make it work within the physics of the Flash. Watch how he handles that entire film. He does not touch the people except for giving them slight little adjustments. He wrecks everything around those babies. Mm-hmm. But he made sure that those babies and that woman and that dog were barely touched except to slowly line them up so he could catch them in order. That was brilliant because that actually comes back later when he talks to Barry too, and he says, look, you got to be careful when touching people. You will mess them up. And I thought about that scene again. I was like, you know what? He did a really good job of, in that scene, doing everything he could not to come into contact with those fleshy parts, even though they look like, rubber Stretch Armstrong characters. I appreciated that. I appreciated halfway through the scene where he's like, I've got this on lock. I've saved these babies. I know where the nurse is going to fall. Oh, crap, there's a dog. That scene where he sees the dog and the dog is looking at him like, bro.
Yeah.
I was dying, man. I love that.
Let's just take just to pause on that. I will give them a lot of credit. They did understand the character of the Flash much better than they did Shazam in the DC universe. They understood how his powers work, how his powers affect him, because again, the whole jittery aspect of who Barry is a part of the speed nature of him, I think, and not just Barry being neurotic. So I thought, and again, how they factored in the eating and having to constantly recharge and that. I do like the fact that they understood basic things about the character, which is a lot more than what they normally do when it comes to these superheroes in the DC universe. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely decided to make his powers part of his personality, which is much more of a Bart thing, which is Flash 4, technically. And we're getting deep in the winds here. But the point is that, okay, fine. If we're lifting different character traits from all these different, characters and we're making an amalgam to create this Barry, I'm fine with that. And I don't like it, but I can at least understand where they're going. And you're right. They're very consistent with that portrayal. And again, seeing the different versions of Barry and how he understands how his powers work, I think we're incredibly fortunate that Barry didn't know how to phase when he first got his powers and the attack in Metropolis happened. I think we're incredibly fortunate that Barry had not come into his own when Cal has to fight Zod, because that is a very different version of Barry, as we saw. I like the fact that we get a reverse Flash, and it makes sense. And it actually is a reverse Flash that does not have to sit here and you go, wait, what? And you don't have to say, even though I love his name, Eobard Thawne. You don't have to say that stupid name because it's a dumb name, but I accept it because that's the baddie. I'm fine with that. But you don't have to say the name because they made reverse Flash make sense.
Well, they actually called him Black Flash or Dark Flash or something like that.
He technically is, but
in my head, I was saying Savitar the whole time.
Thank you. Yeah.
he
kind of looks like Savitar, right? I mean, spiky armor.
Because
or is that
TV
just Arrowverse?
Savitar, not the real Savitar.
Yeah, you don't know what Savitar is.
Sorry.
Savitar is an Arabic man who basically is topless, wears a golden mask, and he has these blue flowy pants on. The closest version of a speedster that this Flash looks like is the new 52 Reverse Flash, which is basically, he almost looks like he's made out of molten magma, and his outfit looks like black rock all around him. And inside, you can see the Speed Force kind of pulsing out, and he's got these glowing eyes. That version, if you Google right now, Reverse Flash New 52, you'll see him. You'll be like, oh, that is what they were going for. So yeah, that's the Reverse Flash that they were trying to go for. And it works. As a live action adaptation, because that version of the Reverse Flash has all these craggy parts on him and whatnot. And I'm like, where the hell did that all come from in the comic? I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. In the movie, I'm like, oh, the movie's really consistent with the beats of how they get from A to Z. Which is surprising. It's
I only bring up that they called him something else because of the fact that Muschietti, back before the movie was released and he thought he was getting a sequel, said that the next movie would have the Reverse Flash. So
yeah, no.
Well,
anyway, yeah, about that.
Have you seen those numbers?
All right. So I liked the idea of them sort of giving like a farewell to the DCEU, you know, as sort of like an idea of, since we are transitioning, and the problem is this movie, and this is part of why I think that it's a lot of pieces that stick together and not very well, is because this movie has had to serve so many different functions based on like when in the timeline we are. Because originally it was supposed to be more of just we're just going to do like a sort of soft reboot and just change Affleck for Keaton, and we're going to introduce Supergirl in this, but otherwise the DCEU would be the same, you know, and you know, we're just preparing for like Keaton to do a bunch of appearances. I think they said they signed him for like 9 movies or something like that. So like, you know, most of those being like small appearances, cameo type things, I think. But, you know, they signed him for a 9-movie deal. And, you know, now we go to, oh no, actually this has to be like a, you know, a full reboot, you know, kind of movie. And so we do get this nice little swan song, you know, to the DC, or at least that's the intention of it, except for the fact that Affleck plays Batman completely differently than he played him in the previous movies. Like, it didn't feel like it was the same Batman, even though it was Affleck playing the part. Like, suddenly he's quippy and lighthearted, and that was the thing that I hated about the Whedon version of Justice League, was that, you know, they had too many jokes for Batman, and I didn't like the Batman, like, you know, like, oh, that really hurts, ow, 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 or the I didn't say I didn't like not like you, or whatever it is that he says to Clark in that one scene that's like so uncomfortable and stupid. And it's like, and here where we have him again being like kind of silly and like that, and I'm just like, you know, I wanted to see Affleck's, you know, final, you know, performance, because I felt like he was a better Batman than people gave him credit for.
Oh, definitely.
But I didn't feel like this was like a great way of like sending him out.
I think everybody should talk on this one. Or actually, let me just get mine out of the way, then you guys can rebut me on this one. So I hard disagree with you on this one. I feel the way Snyder set up his Batman was, his Batman had been on a 20-year quest on his own to avenge something he could never fix. He could never find solace because he was holding this burden on his own, with Alfred barely keeping him sane. We saw the darkest version of Batman at the start. And then you have Batman v Superman, and then you have the Justice League, and then you have this one. As he has gained family, so to speak, he has become a lighter soul because he realizes he doesn't have to shoulder this burden. He even talks to Barry about, you have to accept that you can't change things. That version of Bruce Wayne would not have said that in Batman v Superman. That Batman v Superman would have told Barry to get on his horse, go back in time, save his mama, and go get his mama's pearls too while you're at it. Like, that Bruce Wayne would have absolutely done the selfish thing. Whereas at the end of this journey, this is almost kind of like how Nolan did the Dark Knight trilogy, which is, as he continues his war, he realizes that at some point you have to lay down your burdens. And obviously Christian Bale was able to lay down his burdens and leave. I feel that if the Snyderverse had continued on, Bruce Wayne would have absolutely, Ben Affleck, Batfleck would have put down the cow. I feel like, which is why if you look at his costume, look at the very first time you see him in Batman v Superman, he's like in all black. Right. And then in Justice League, he's like in gray. And in this one, he looks like classic Dark Knight Returns. He's got the blue cowl, he's got the gray on. He looks like just a muscle-bound version of, for lack of a better term, Adam West. You know, I mean, he's a much lighter-looking version of the character. And I think that's to reflect his inner state, too. So.
I get that, and I agree that he's a lighter version of that character. But for me, it's not there, like, how he got here. Because we're so broken up from that Justice League movie 7 freaking years ago.
Oh, totally.
I have no idea how I'm going to kill everybody got to this guy where he's making jokes and smiling and just hanging out by his car and just having a casual conversation with Barry. I don't know how that guy got to here. So
you know how they got there? One stupid scene at the end of Batman v Superman where he's talking to Wonder Woman and he says, I did it all wrong. I should have listened to people more. I should have been a better person. I got to be more like him. It's so stupid. That's their whole reasoning why Bruce starts to lighten up. And that's the problem with the Snyderverse movies, is that they'll make one throwaway line the entire motivation instead of actually building it up. And that's bad storytelling.
One name is your entire motivation.
Right? I mean, it's bad storytelling.
Yeah, Sean's right yet again. I mean, and Snyderverse logic, it makes sense. Superman came back and restored hope, and obviously Batman would become a better person. But I also think it's Bruce's relationship specifically with Barry here, because we never saw Ben Affleck with a Robin. This is as close as we'll ever get to a Batman Robin scenario in the Snyderverse, and I kind of feel like this is how it would have been. And Batman and this Bruce saw Barry. Maybe he was reminded of whichever Robin died, but he clearly saw himself as a mentor, father figure for this.
But that can't happen off screen. It's like I don't get that. I don't get why he would befriend Barry. Why in the world would Batman, this dark and brooding person, be attracted to this neurotic and crazy? Hey, why would that guy be seen as his Robin?
Because they both lost their moms.
And their moms were named
Everybody lost their mom.
Aquaman lost his mom. He's not hanging out with Aquaman.
We don't know that he might go from hanging out with Barry to
Aquaman's mother was named Martha.
Well, no. Yeah. Aquaman's father is named Thomas, and that's what they bond over.
Oh. Right. No, but what I think is hilarious is that everybody's mom is dead in the Justice League.
Yes. Everybody.
Except Wonder Woman. She doesn't have a mom.
No. At the end of her mom's dead. At the end of
that's her adopted mom. She doesn't have a real mom. She's a construct from clay.
Well, okay.
She's a golem, if you want to get real specific.
Are we going with that? Are we deciding to go? Okay.
She never gave birth to her.
I hate
she
when
passed
people
no vaginal
that
canal.
word. The word is golem, not Gollum. It's Golem.
Oh, sorry.
Gollum is precious.
Golem. Yes, you're right. Sorry.
But anyway.
But yeah.
Wait, Martha Kent's still alive in the Snyderverse. Wait.
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, Martha Kent.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Martha is still alive. I'm sorry. I started thinking about Spider-Man's auntie.
Bruce bought her house for her.
That's right.
Bruce bought the bank.
That's right. Bruce bought the bank that owned the house. That's right. Yes.
But also, this also reminds me of the conversation of you can't have a hero who decides to be good unless somebody has something horrible happen in their life. Mm-hmm. Tom Holland's Spider-Man chose to be a good guy. He was a good guy before Tony Stark entered his life. He was a good guy while Tony Stark was in his life. Afterwards, he didn't have his Uncle Ben moment until Aunt May died. I mean, it took a long. Yeah, we do. There was never an Uncle Ben in that world. There was never an Uncle Ben.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, there was.
She did have a husband named Ben, but I don't know how she knew her.
There was never an Uncle Ben moment in that world. He
didn't have his powers when Ben was alive.
It wasn't like his Uncle Ben moment is Aunt May.
Yeah, Tom Holland. Yep.
Well,
yeah,
he didn't have an Uncle Ben.
But
right, but that's semantics.
I don't want to get off topic here, but my point is that again, it's a weird thing. And again, we're talking currently about, I don't even know what the hell we're talking about. I'm sorry.
I think the Flash movie.
All right, guys, hold on. I do want to get back to what Daviar was saying, because again, I think it tees up on something that I was saying before. So much of the emotional lifting for this movie happens off screen, and that is one of the problems with this movie, is it wants to get to Flashpoint with the first Flash movie, and we want to have all these established relationships there, because again, I haven't read Flashpoint, but I know about the comic series Flashpoint, but I know a lot of the stuff about it, and a lot of the stuff about it is the fact that all the DC universe relationships are screwed up. Wonder Woman and Aquaman and Themyscira and Atlantis are at war, and there's all this stuff that's all screwed up, but that's because you are invested in the characters already. And so when you have this screwed up timeline where things aren't the way that they're supposed to be, it matters. And that's where this movie falls apart, because it wants to do something that impactful, but a lot of the emotional lifting has happened off screen.
But without spending 8 years building up.
Right. I would feel for Barry and this problem with all these Bruce Waynes if I understood his relationship with the Affleck Bruce Wayne. But one scene where they're sort of hanging out on a curb is not enough to give me what is the nature of I know Barry said they're best friends. I think that's in Barry's mind.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
But still, there's a relationship. Bruce obviously cares enough to spend time. with Barry. So, and do like a heart to heart and stuff like that. So again, I would like to understand that relationship. If we're going to make that one of like the big things about this movie, is that Barry and Bruce have a good connection, and we don't get that. And that's one of my frustrations with this movie.
That relationship is interesting, but that's not what the movie revolves around.
No,
it's not true. It's literally the relationship between Barry and his mother, and to Ezra Miller's credit, and I don't know the actress's name who played his mom, their chemistry as mother and son was off the charts. I mean,
did you think so?
It was coming. Yeah, I did. It came across the screen.
Okay. Yeah,
I couldn't understand what she was saying half the time. Her accent was very strong. I know that's a petty thing, but at the same time, that made it very hard to like feel a relationship from them.
Hey! Don't go dunking on people with harsh Spanish accents. I can understand her.
Oh, was that Spanish? I thought it was Italian.
Yeah, Spanish. Yeah. No, she's Spanish. She's if you ever see Y Tu Mama Tambien, she was the main character in that one. That's Maribel Verdú. She's really good. She's a really good actress. I thought she did a really good job. I thought as being as important to the mythos in its current iteration as I try not to roll my eyes too hard, I think that she made a pretty good Nora Allen. I thought that she had done a pretty solid job.
So how about the Michael Keaton scene where he was imparting that wisdom to Barry?
All right, no, hold on.
We're skipping too far ahead?
We're not going to Flashpoint yet because I want to talk about Gal Gadot. And I will put in that note again because everybody says Gadot. Her name is actually pronounced Gal Gadot.
I've been waiting for someone to say Gadot. That's a little theatrical pun there for listeners.
All right, but I did want to just say, worst kept secret ever. She was going to be in this movie. It was nice to see her. And I will say this, the best part for me, because I do ship them, is like her thing where she was like, I'm here for Bruce or whatever, like that. And there's like sort of like this sort of like look between them that I'm just like, oh yeah. But it's nice to
honestly,
see her
the lasso of truth bit was actually really funny. They've done it before. And they've done it. It's been in comics, but the say that I've never actually had sex before. That was actually really fun. I did laugh out loud to that.
Oh, see, I thought that one was too much. I prefer the Aquaman one in Justice League, where he's just like saying like we're all gonna die, and then because it starts out being something plausible for him to say, but then he just keeps going, and then you realize he's sitting on the lap. And to me, that joke lands so much better than this one, where it just was like way
them all tied up and just like spilling all their secrets about how they feel about Wonder Woman is pretty funny.
I also thought it was hilarious that Barry thought he was going to be able to get them out of the lasso of truth instead of just letting Gadot pull it back. Gadot, whatever. Diana for just undoing the lasso of truth.
Because she can just give it a little wiggle and it'll untie itself. She does that all the time.
With him at that point,
but she was just like screwing with him. Yeah,
and I thought that was hilarious. I was like, okay, but I mean, considering the fact that that's probably going to be her last official appearance as Wonder Woman. I think that's a much better way to leave the Snyderverse version of DC.
And it's also worth noting in her final appearance, because it's been going back and forth. She flew away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So I was really happy with that, and I was like, that was a great cameo. I thought that was great. Honestly, I think the one cardinal sin was us not getting Henry Cavill to actually roll up for a few minutes.
Yeah, I would have really liked to see. Oh, sorry. The problem was the scene they filmed for him was at the courthouse, and they didn't want him to be in like the post-change universe.
Yeah.
And so they cut it out. Like if he had been in the bridge scene, they probably would have left it in, but that's not what they filmed. So
yeah. I don't know. I think that's worthy of a reshoot day, quite frankly. I think that's a reshoot day, because you say goodbye to your Trinity properly.
Well, and he was done so wrong, because they like told him like you're back, and then like a month later said, "Oh no, you're not." So like that was really awful.
Yeah, but I also think that Gunn handled that really well, because Gunn totally landed on his sword on that one. He was like, "Look, I really wanted him to come back," because he said very frankly, he was like, "I think our Justice League is pretty good." He goes, "I think that everybody who is currently cast," and he kind of winked and nodded about maybe a certain Scarlet Speedster who might need to get recast. he was kind of like, I think we're in good shape. And then he basically realized, for the stories I want to tell, they need to be much younger. I mean, let's be fair, Henry Cavill's my age. He's what, 45, 46, something like that.
I don't think he's quite that old, but he's close. He's in his 40s.
Yeah, he's in his early 40s then. Yeah. And they wanted to tell, like...
And they wanted to do a 20-year arc.
Yeah, they wanted to do somebody, or have somebody who could play this character for 10 or 15 years. They wanted to cast younger, so that way they could have a prolonged time with these characters.
But they want a Batman with the fourth Robin, which is one of those things.
Right, but again, at the same time, that's assuming that Barry's going to come back. And I think this is the end of the Snyderverse, and I think that we're just going to, I really wish that on re-release, once we establish whatever the current universe is, any movie that came before that, whenever they re-release it, whenever it streams, it automatically has an Elseworld, and you just list
no. I'm talking about the fact they've said that Batman the Brave and the Bold, which is going to be the Gunn universe version, will have Damian Wayne as Robin. So they're going to start out Batman with the fourth Robin. So it's kind of weird with we're going younger, and it's like, wait a minute, are we doing the new 52 thing where he's a 30-year-old Batman with four Robins? I mean,
but they could do that as long as they don't have any other Robins. If you just start with Damian and just say, there's no Dick Grayson yet.
Yeah, there was no.
I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, what if Damian because let's be fair, Damian is known in the DC universe to go off the handle quite a bit. What if he just quits and then just by accident, Dick Grayson finds his way into Bruce's life? Then technically he's not the first Robin, but he's the first he's still the first adopted son.
Honestly, the Robin arcs make more sense if you start with Damian and he screws up with Damian and his own son leaves him, and then he's like, okay, let me try this again with Dick Grayson. I got to get this right, and then screws
that could
up,
be an interesting story,
and then
right?
Gets another one. That it actually makes more sense thematically. I know it's not how it was in the comic books, but story-wise, it would make more sense to start with your own son screwing it up and then moving on to other.
Yeah,
moving on to the other Robins.
Yeah, it also has that great mythological mythos to it. It has that great mythology to it of the father who failed the son and realizes it and can't bridge with their son and somehow has to try to make it right. So he adopts a new son, which then, of course, causes friction down the line. And now we're hypothesizing about new Batman. That's
right. I was we are so far from a Flash.
We are doing everything we can to not talk about this damn movie.
Because Batman is such a central figure to the Flash.
It is. And I think it's important because we've seen now, by the end of this movie, we have seen a Ben Affleck version of Bruce Wayne, which is the darkest of nights becoming the whitest of nights, right? They go from the Dark Knight to the White Knight, as they call him in the isn't that right? Isn't it isn't he called White Knight in that one where he becomes super? It's
That's
called
problematic.
Well, no, I mean not White Knight.
Wow. Anti-woke humor here, y'all.
Oh my Lord, no. I mean, no, they call him something. I forget what the name of the series is, but basically, it's all black and it's not called. It's not the black and white series, but there's one where he is essentially. They don't call him the Dark Knight. He's like the hero for he actually tries to be a brighter future instead of I am the night. So we have that version. We have the goodbye of Keaton, which I loved. I thought that was fantastic. We have the Clooney cameo, which was just
loved it.
Chef kiss. I mean, I'm okay with him going.
What an easy sell for Clooney. Hey, you're going to drive up in a fancy car. Bunch of people are going to crowd you. You're going to walk up and you go, what's wrong?
Well, according to Kevin Smith, though, they asked Christian Bale first and he turned it down. And they got
that's
Clooney.
Fine. No, we want Clooney's more in theme with the whole movie.
But talking about people who were done wrong, though, we're going to talk about Michael Keaton, who was told that this was the first of a 9-picture deal, a 9-movie deal. And he got he got this, and he filmed scenes for Batgirl, which never got released, and that's all he. Oh, actually, I think he did also film some scenes for Aquaman, but they cut out all the Batman stuff from Aquaman, according to reports. So,
rewind for a second for me. Where did you hear that he got 9 movies? Because the last time I heard the 9-movie deal thing was years ago.
This was just before COVID. They signed him to a 9-picture deal, and the thing was because Flashpoint, what the Flash movie was supposed to do is change. Before Gunn and before Discovery took over Warner Brother, they were going to change. This movie was going to change Affleck to Keaton. Right, they were going to reset. Keaton was going
Affleck's breakdown, and he was out completely.
Right, and so they were going to have Keaton as the Batman in all DC movies moving forward. And so they said, now that doesn't mean he was going to be a main character in 9 movies, but he was going to appear in 9 DC movies, and that was the deal they made with him.
The only reason why I ask is that Keaton, about 7 or 8 months ago, after he had filmed his scenes for Flashpoint, or when they did the reshoots, somebody finally asked him about this 9 movie deal. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He was like, I was asked to do Flashpoint, and then I was asked to do Batgirl. And he was like, as far as I know, I was never signed to anything more than doing a couple of cameos in these movies, or not even cameo, but these kind of secondary roles, and then doing some Aquaman stuff. He's like, I wasn't ever under the impression I was going to be doing this unless they wanted me to. So according to him, about a year or so ago, there was never a 9 movie deal. There was okay, we might ask you back for future movies if we go that way. And he was like, okay. He basically at this point was kind of like, screw it. I've already done what I wanted to do with my career, and I love being Batman now. It doesn't bother me anymore. He's kind of done the Leonard Nimoy thing where he's past the I'm not Spock anymore.
Oh, well, yeah, like 7 or 8 years ago, he did a movie that was all about how he regrets not doing a third Batman movie. What's that called? Birdman or something like that?
Birdman,
yeah.
So, but I was like, you can tell that, but you can also tell when people ask him about it. I read the interview, and he basically, the tone of the interview, he was basically laughing in the person's face, like, I don't know where you're getting your news from. He's like, I've only read the script that they've given to me that they're paying for me. I don't know anything about 8 more movies or whatever the hell that they were talking.
See, that to me sounds more like an interview that he did that I read where they were talking about him doing a bunch of Spider-Man themed movies for Sony, where he was like, I don't know what you're talking about, I just know that I play a character, and what he is, this Vulture, and I know who he is, and I don't know anything about scripts or what's happening or whatever.
But Keaton's also usually pretty straightforward about what he's doing and what he's not doing. People keep trying to make Beetlejuice 2 happen, and he's like, Beetlejuice 2 isn't happening until they announce Beetlejuice 2, and then he's like, I guess it's happening. Until it was an official thing, he's like, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. Michael Keaton, in my opinion, is probably one of the last of the really awesome old school kind of actors who got into the comic book movies, where he doesn't like to speculate until contracts are signed, payments are made. He does not speculate. He does not talk about it because he knows how fickle the business is. And when you speculate on that, you start looking like Neil Blomkamp trying to make Alien 5 happen, Whereas he would rather say, no, I'm going to be Batman in this upcoming movie. It's going to be dope. Or he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Nobody's he basically, until the money's in his account, he doesn't know jack. Basically it's how Keaton approaches it. And I kind of can't blame him for that approach.
Or alternatively, he just never talks with his agent.
No, I think it's more of I think it's closer to what Sean's saying, of just the fact that he might know that there was talk of 9 movies and there might have been something, but he's just he's gonna play dumb with people because it's but there was never a certainty about. So he's not gonna say we're doing this thing just because he was promised something. You know, he once it's actually into development and I've been I'm on a call sheet.
Right.
When I'm on the call sheet, that's when I say, yep, I'm doing this.
Yeah, but I also respect that, though, because I think that's a really healthy way if you're going into Hollywood to approach your movie deals. Because if you get your heart set on a role, until you know that the money's in your account, you don't know that you're doing that role. And then people get bent out of shape. You've heard the stories about people who feel like they've been wronged by Hollywood because this didn't happen or that didn't happen. Mm-hmm. And here comes Keaton. And Keaton's like, did they pay me? Yeah. Okay. Did I like what I read? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to do the movie? Yeah. Money's in the bank? Yeah. Let's go.
The thing that I want to know, and I know we're getting a little off of Flash, the thing that I haven't seen anyone ask him about is how he feels about Batgirl being shelved. That's the thing that I want somebody to ask him. To hear. Because does he feel well, I got paid, so it doesn't matter? Or is he I'm annoyed that I invested time and effort in this and nobody's ever going to see it?
Well, I think we also have to look at it from his point of view. It's not like he gets to sit down and watch the movie over and over. Most actors don't really watch their own work.
Right.
So for them, the experience is making the movie, right? So he made the movie. If they decide to show it or not,
and he got paid. Yeah. On top of which, every actor is used to filming hundreds of hours worth of material only to have 2 hours at best.
Every good scene, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So he probably has no clue.
Yeah, Keaton is not some fresh face who's trying to be seen. Like you said earlier, like he's solidified.
And DC is really good at doing the wrong takes. They're the ones we've talked before about how in the previews, the version of a scene that they put in the preview was actually better than the one that makes it into the theatrical cut.
It's true.
And I tried to find an article that said he signed on to a 9-movie deal. I couldn't find one, but I did see an article that said he got paid 6 times as much to play the Vulture as he did to play Batman in the Flash. So yeah, if it's about money, nine
might be a number I picked out of nowhere. It was a number of movies in addition to it was a multi-movie deal. Nine might not be right. I might be confusing the Chris Evans deal that he made went to be Captain America for 9 movies, because that number I do know is actually 9. Because I remember thinking,
that man also got a paycheck and a half, and if Chris, I'm telling you, if Chris Evans calls Disney, like Iger's on the phone, like, what you need? Do you need me to come over and like give you a back massage? You want to come back to Captain America? You want to come hang out with Sam? You don't even have to be. We'll make you old. You can just hang out and give out advice. By the way, can we just say for 1 minute, I am super excited to see this new Captain America movie when it finally comes out. And I hope to God they get Chris Evans in old man makeup and Sam gets to sit down and like have like a mentor. He's like, I'm fighting these really horrible, 1%, 3%er, anti-America, super American douchebags. And what do I do? And he's like, I really need some guidance here. And you just have an old man. He's like, well, sometimes you just gotta kick him in the balls, or just like have like a version of Steve that's just seen life, and it's just there. I would love that, because Sam, I can't wait to see him as Captain America, and I can't wait to see like Chris Evans come back and do that. And if he says I'll do it, like I'm waiting for it. And that's basically how I treat Michael Keaton. If Michael Keaton says, hey, can I be Batman for a few days? Warner Brothers better say, you damn right you can be Batman for a few days. Here are the tights, get in. And they just film him walking around ordering coffee and stuff. And they just have it in the catalog whenever they need a Batman scene.
I think you need to sunset characters at some point. I mean, I think this was a great movie to kind of send off Keaton, and I hope they don't keep bringing him back for repeated thing, because I think like with this movie, I don't want to keep getting Gal Gadot like showing up out of nowhere for like a flashback. It's like at some point we need to sunset that, so it's I hear you, Keaton is still my favorite Batman of all time, but I hope we can in the gun era we can move forward.
Okay.
I agree with that. Like I said, the joke being, bring it back whenever you can just to have it, but in reality, it honestly was the great thing I love about that was when you get to the scene where Barry realizes there are some things he can't fix. And he was like, I have to save you. And he was like, I have to bring you back. And he's like, you already did. And the metaphor of I have to bring you back is so strong.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's so stupid because it's basically the Luke and Vader scene all over again.
Right.
But that scene hits. Right. That scene hits. I don't care what movie it's in, it hits. Okay, if you earn that and you earned it with Keaton, it lands, man. So I love that. So yeah.
So getting back to Nate's question a while back, and I do want to talk about Keaton's performance and Keaton as Batman here. So first of all, Keaton, that scene where he's doing the spaghetti, was the most where I feel like he channeled his performance from 1989 the most. Like his mannerisms, the way he's talking, he seems very much like that sort of weirdly uncomfortable with human interaction version of Bruce Wayne from the original Batman movie. Like, I have watched that movie several times recently, and I felt that performance coming through. Now, for me as an audience member watching it, though, it felt like that scene from Wayne's World where Alice Cooper suddenly seems weirdly knowledgeable about the history of Milwaukee.
About things he shouldn't know about.
Right, exactly. And like, I'm watching this, it's like, this is so weird because he's just like, you want to know about time travel? I know about time travel.
Let me tell you.
Like, what? Why?
Yeah, but
I'm Batman from 1989. I know everything about recursive time
scene
loops.
from Wayne's World where Alice Cooper is just like, many people have called Milwaukee home. The natives called it Milwaukee, and they like go on about this whole thing, and it's just like, I did not know that.
I totally hear you, Nathan, and it is funny, but you swallow it because we all have an understanding of how smart Batman is.
Yeah, right, but this version of Batman is a Batman from a very mundane universe where there are no metahumans. There's no like really off the wall stuff going on. It's like
he solved crime.
He
solved all of Gotham crime, and he got to retire.
Right. We're also not addressing the gigantic elephant in the room, which is that just because he's not Batman anymore doesn't mean he's not Bruce effing Wayne. And Bruce effing Wayne is at least Tony Stark smart. All right? He's still smart. The man still has a business. He fixed the unfixable city. Okay? The man, and again, people are like, well, he's not from a world where there are superhumans and whatnot. I hate to break it to you, but the people who wrote the movie to explain how time travel works come from a place where time travel is made up. So we don't have the ability to travel through time, so we don't know what the hell we're talking about. So this guy we know that there's a multiverse. We scientifically know, but from a mathematical certainty, that it exists. We know that there are things that are mathematically, no, I'm not even kidding, Nathan. Mathematically, we know that on a quantum level, there are multiple states that only come into cohesion when we finally observe it.
There's debate. There's disagreement about that, Sean.
No.
I actually, this is actually something I do know about, and there's disagreement on that. But yes, that is definitely one of the possible things with M theory.
Let me finish. Hold on, let me finish because you're not going to step on my science on this one. I'm sorry, bleep me out. Because this is something that I've been studying for a number of years now, and I've been talking to a lot of people about it. And the reason why I bring it up specifically is because when we're talking about these kind of things, there are mathematical solutions that we can actually look to and say, this makes sense. And then you can say,
there are a lot of things that make sense.
Hold on. You can cut all this out, but let me just finish, okay? Because then it just stretches on, because then I have to rebut you instead of just getting the thought out of my head, okay? But my point is that there are mathematical solutions that do work, but then you have to take into account other things and say, but wait, what about this and what about that? My point is that we're at a point where we can start to really look down and say, this is a very plausible thing. We do not have even Batman level of technology from 1989. So then looking at a man who clearly owns a company that deals with technology, all sorts of type of sciences, all sorts of stuff. And we know that he keeps up with this because he needs to know where the next threat is going to come from. If he ever has to put the cowl back on, he would understand some of these fundamental things. So saying that he's just like pulling this out of his butt is not necessarily fair. He's probably staying fairly read up. I mean, the fact that he looks like a hobo who basically stays in one room is probably because all he's doing is reading papers and checking stuff out and then just being this weird, hermit. So I could see him just studying the sciences of things and making sure the businesses is running, but not wanting to be around another human. So that is completely plausible to me. And then, of course, his explanation is ridiculous because, honestly, it's the best explanation as to why Flashpoint would do what it did. Because if you read what happened in the comic book, it was because he didn't use the cosmic treadmill.
I know.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So, no, I will say this. For trying to explain something that doesn't make sense because it works backwards and forwards, the spaghetti analogy was as good as anything you're going to get. And at least it gives you a nice visual and something you can kind of like go with, okay, like this metaphor, so I feel like that was one of the things that I think the writers were very clever at, because it's like, it doesn't work if you think about it, but since this is the way they want to present it, you give us this metaphor and it's kind of like, all right,
It clearly works because you have to realize that the reason this Bruce knows all of this is because he's already tried it. He's built the Bat time machine. It's in the Bat cave, and he went back to save his parents. And, because of the spaghetti analogy, it's not his parents he saved. He just jumped over to a parallel noodle. He realized there was no point, so he just went back to his. Which is what actually ticked me off about this example. Because at the end of it, in the Chrono Bowl, when Barry gives up. He's like, hey, there's nothing we do is going to work. I guess I should just go back to my universe. Good luck being conquered by Zod. And that's what kind of ticked me off about this, because it's not that he's going back and undoing it and making sure that never happened. He's literally just abandoning this universe which always existed.
Well, no, because I think you're conflating time travel with multiverse, because this was, at least the impression that I got.
He just jumped over to a different noodle.
That's not how because he said it was like a fulcrum. So you go back to an event and it changes the timeline backwards and forwards. And he says sometimes that will cause noodles to intersect.
Because
but that one timeline is a single noodle. No, the single noodle turned diagonal. So that's still the same noodle, the same timeline. And it went forwards and backward. No, because he said the change ripples forwards and backwards in time. So that's still talking about one timeline. It's not talking about a multiverse lit. He just said that if you keep doing it.
Are in a bowl full of noodles.
Ryan, that's the reason why those other universes started crashing in, because they changed it enough times that the multiverse started impinging. But in the beginning, it was just one timeline that was changed.
He would have been fine if he stopped.
Right.
Right. That's the point, is that he went back, he changed one thing, and then if he didn't get knocked back out in 1995 or whatever, he went back, he went forward in time, then that he would have seen big differences because of the fulcrum thing, but we wouldn't have had all the Power Stone, colored balls crashing into each other at the very end.
Right.
And
that fulcrum is just on a level plane, a single thing.
Right.
And so the reverse flash
the multiverse
is
is when the chronosphere started collapsing. That was the multiverse part.
I'll have to go back and rewatch the specific scene, but the way I remember it is he was mentioned the fulcrum and then said they exist in the bowl. Some are parallel to each other, and then some are just a big hot mess, in the bowl.
Right, but those are separate noodles. Those are the separate noodles that can be impinged upon when you do that. But it's still one time. The single noodle is just one universe.
Yes.
It's only when that noodle crushes into another noodle that it's a problem.
Yeah, I'll go back and rewatch it. Maybe. I don't know. It's just
don't do it. No, it's actually not worth it to win this conversation. It's
literally just because I want to be
look it up on YouTube. I'm sure someone's got it clipped on YouTube.
As far as an explanation that has some internal consistency to itself, even if it doesn't make rational sense to us, I think that worked. I think within the narrative of this story that worked.
And I liked that analogy of why just changing one thing in the past actually not just ripples forward but ripples backwards. So
time travel,
all sorts of crazy things happen. I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, time travel has consequences no matter how small of a ripple that you make. You are making a ripple. But I think the messed up part about this in general is that I think both answers are correct, which is I think that's what Barry ultimately understands, which is that these things, the reason why the multiverse worlds were starting to hit each other was because the chance of them happening ever was starting to devolve because they were screwing up time that badly. They were taking a whole glob of noodles and they were throwing it against the wall. They weren't in the bowl anymore, so to speak. So they were removing possible noodles now. And I think if you're thinking about this rationally, Barry realized that this version of the world where his mother would have survived, where she remembered the tomatoes, even if he had not interfered and he had not been struck by lightning. This is a world where there was never going to be a Superman. There was never going to be a Supergirl. Bruce Wayne was retired. Technically speaking, the end of that world probably happened with Zod terraforming it and making it into New Krypton, period. Which means that if Barry had successfully gone back to the present, he would have been on New Krypton. He would not have been on. So I think that we have to accept that he knew that this version of the world, no matter what he did, was going to be destroyed. And there was nothing he could do to stop it because he watched himself do it to a point where he became the Reverse Flash. So he realized, I can't save this world. I can't save it because I'm the problem. I keep trying to save everybody. And this is something that I have argued. Nathan knows my argument. One of the things I tell people all the time is that Barry Allen is one of the few people, technically Wally is the person who does it. Again, giving Wally attributes that Barry doesn't have. Wally basically believes that nobody has to die. Granted, all the superheroes do, but Wally's one of the few people who actually has the capability in most situations to do that. A perfect example is Flash issue number 57 in the Mark Waid run, where he's fallen out of an airplane. And The reason why he's falling out of an airplane is because a stewardess got sucked out of the airplane, and flight attendant, and she's going to hit the ground, and he's like, I gotta save her. Nobody dies, and he jumps out trying to save her. How does a man who runs fast stop a woman from making critical, impact on the ground when he can't fly? And the solution is wonderful, because he tries his best and he saves her. And it's something he literally yells in the movie: nobody dies. That's not life. Sometimes, even optimistically, when we're hopeful, hope doesn't mean you're an idiot. Hope means that you continue to persevere even when things are dark. And in this situation, he realized this version of his world cannot live because there's no way to fix it. That was
the great hero moment for him, I thought. And I wish, going back to the earlier point about it being solely a Flash movie, that would have been a great moment that makes him a hero, which is the moment of realizing I can't save everyone. Right. And I think that is a heck of an admission for the hero of a story to have, especially when you have the ability of the Flash. So I wish that moment would have. I wish that they had a moment that was focused on that to show you the growth of that character, where it was fully just Barry's story without all these other things going on. So.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, for me, that was maybe one of the strongest moments of Miller's performance, is when, again, I love the fact that 70% of this movie is him arguing with himself. It's just the weirdest. As far as an acting gig, that must have been a weird damn job. But where he has to argue with himself about the fact that I can't do it. I can't save everybody. And he knows it. He just knows it. That has got to be a hard thing to accept. And to watch himself continually try over and over. And the metaphor of watching the timeline change. And he's just like, it's not fixing. It's getting worse. It's getting worse. Oh my God, it's getting worse. You watch him realize that. And I was like, this is actually fairly compelling. This is a really compelling moment in the movie. I thought that was really nicely well done. I was like, look at you guys. You didn't screw this up. That. They call it the Chrono Bowl, which is a stupid name for time travel machine, but it's better than the damn cosmic treadmill, I'll tell you that. So.
All right, but I really do want to get back to Keaton, and of course we got to talk about Sasha Calle also as Supergirl. But just thoughts on Keaton and his performance in this movie. Nate?
What I really liked about Keaton was he gave us all our golden moments of, you want to get nuts, and I am Batman, and all those things you always want to hear Michael Keaton say. And it was hammy. He was chewing the scenery, but he knew it, we knew it, and we just loved it anyways. It was great. And that scene where he's counseling Barry about, the real reason why he's doing all of this and why he's willing to risk his life to try to get his powers back and everything. It was just great to see Michael Keaton giving top-notch, A grade acting, as opposed to a lot of the other acting that we saw in this movie. I thought he really outshone his partners a lot, with the exception of Kara, which we haven't touched on yet. We need to get to.
She's so good.
We need to get to Sasha Calle, but he really. It was just great to see him on screen redoing Bruce Wayne and Batman, and as an old Batman. And I'm sad to see it go, but I'm glad that I got to see one last time.
Brian?
They did it was kind of a blink and you'll miss it type thing, which kind of explained this whole hermit Bruce. Yeah. Oh, he solved all the crime in Gotham, which you do. But assuming this is the 89 Batman, and there's no guarantee, it could still just be another Batman that looks like Michael Keaton.
And the same house,
exactly. Why not? Multiverse, Right. It's possible. But
same cave, same Batmobile.
Same cave, same
The Batwing was different. Batwing was totally different.
Well, there you go. I mean,
well, it had to be after it crashed and blew up in the first movie, but you know.
I call BS on that because also the Batmobile looked like the way it looked in the first Batman. In Batman Returns, it got completely stripped down and they never rebuilt it the same way again. It became the Batbuild.
But yeah, I'm assuming the Kilmer version and the Clooney version are in different universes. But
right now that we've established that we have Elseworlds,
right?
Which color is the Kilmer Batman? Which color do you think it's like? A chartreuse or something?
All right,
like
let's get back. Let's let Ryan finish what he was saying. I didn't want to cut him off.
That's very strange. No, but my point is, where I was going with this is there was a very emotional moment where it's implied that what sent him into that hermitage was not the lack of crime, but the death of Alfred. And that's what hit for me. It made you realize this is Bruce without Alfred. And he's, there's no Kim Basinger. There's no, in this universe, he's just got nothing else to really do except apparently read, popular science, in the Batcave.
Well, in stock reports, I mean, duh.
All right, Daviar.
Yeah, great send off for him. I do think he's a little overused in the movie. How it does become like a co-star role, but I love the sense of watching a hero 20, 30 years later of a gargantuan film that was so representative and influential of our youth, and to see this character come back on screen, like a character we never thought we'd see again, and just to be able to see him in the surroundings, clearly this person, I'm not going with that, this is an alternate version of him. I'm going with that's him because and knowing the history that he's been through, seeing the odes to the Joker and all of that, for me, that was just so classic and so well done. So it was good to kind of see that in a movie like this. And it's, a great performance by Keaton, but I think over the last few years, I mean, find me the performance where Keaton didn't, kind of bring it as he always does. I mean, it's what he does, so I would expect nothing less. So great time for me to see him back on screen.
I think that Batman / Michael Keaton needed to be more prominent because Ezra Miller is kind of problematic. I'm just putting that out there.
I think DC / Warner Brothers made a very conscious choice to pull Keaton more towards the center. And less. I think they
certainly in the
Regret,
advertising.
I think they also regret not having Sasha Cale probably doing more scenes. I think they probably regret not having more Superwoman. I don't like calling her Supergirl. I don't like calling her Supergirl since there was never a Superman in this world. I like to refer to this one as Superwoman. But Sasha Cale, I love. I think if they would have had a little bit more of those characters, and less Miller as the movie went on, even though it's called The Flash, I think it was a smart move. So.
Did you have anything you wanted to say about Keaton, Sean? I know you touched on him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll be honest. I think that Keaton is, for me, as much as I talk about Adam West never having to tell people he's Batman, people just know he's Batman. For me, Michael Keaton will always be Batman. That is my Batman. That's the one I grew up on. I don't think people understand how much of a pivot point 1989 Batman was. You had Batmania in the 60s, but that was nothing compared to 1989 Batman. And that's not saying that Adam West did not change a huge amount. Because I know when people say this kind of stuff, they're like, oh, you're not giving Adam West his due. No, I'm telling you that Adam West made Batman popular, but Michael Keaton made Batman the icon. And that is, and he could not have gotten there without Adam West. So that is not, you're standing on the shoulders of giants who came before you. Which is why you can then have, like Chris Nolan do the awesome Bale version of The Dark Knight and stuff.
We wouldn't have superhero movies today if not for Michael Keaton.
Without Michael Keaton. I mean, and I'm sitting here trying to enunciate just the pure, to go back to that moment is almost as powerful as if I wish he was still here. They could have gotten, like if Christopher Reeve had not had his accident, if he was still alive, if he was still walking around, if they'd have gotten him back into a suit, this is the closest that we're ever going to get to getting what I consider the defining version of those heroes in the movies. You can't, Reeve's been dead for a while, but Michael Keaton was here. Michael Keaton, outside of the pure camp love of West, did it best, in my opinion. And I think that 1989 Batman is such a pivot point that giving him a send-off, even though it's in a world where Zod wins, letting him say, "You brought me back." Like, I just love that moment. It's so good.
It does hit hard.
Like, it honestly, talking about it hurts a little bit, because you are saying goodbye to that Batman, but you have an official goodbye. You that's one thing that we don't talk about with the late 80s and the 90s Batman, which is that we never really said goodbye to that character. He never had a send-off. Like, we had the transition to Val, and obviously Val can't come back because, God bless that man, he is going through hell trying to stay alive, and he can't do, the stuff. But he's in such good spirits. The man's got a Superman heart, so you just want him to just live a good, long life, but he can't do it. Clooney never got a real good shake, and his movie was so bad he practically killed superhero movies for a decade. I mean, like when Spider-Man came out like 5 years after Batman and Robin, people were like, "Are you crazy?" Like, I mean, DC was like, "We can't do Batman. Batman's gonna die." Until Christopher Nolan came at it from a completely different angle. We never said goodbye to that Batman, and this allowed us to say goodbye. We got to acknowledge the death of Alfred. We got to see Keaton one last time and say, "I did the job. I did my run, so to speak, and now my journey is finished." I think the only thing that I would have liked to have seen concerning Keaton is I would have loved to have seen him be feral and just completely crazy, and explain that as, yes, he has gone nuts for Alfred, but just have a hint that he's also been trying to find Selena Kyle since then, because Selena's still out there, and he's basically tracking her, and he can't find her. And if they could have found a way to work Michelle Pfeiffer in there for like 2 minutes, oh my God.
Trapped in the quantum zone.
Just 15 seconds.
No, but this is why I want to do that, though. It's because Marvel now has a track history of taking characters who have done DC properties and then putting them in their stuff, yank them back and be like, ugh, and just but like, I would have loved to have seen her show back up as Selena Kyle for just 2 minutes, and have I don't know, like maybe he'd gotten married to her and she had left, or like just have something where she comes back for a minute and helps inspire him to put back on the cowl. I think would have been amazing. Mm-hmm. But that's me, like, wish fulfillment here. As Keaton on his own, I just love saying goodbye to him. And you actually got to say goodbye to 1989 Batman. Like,
it's like saying goodbye to your childhood.
It does. It takes you back to your childhood. It lets you also say goodbye a little bit in spirit to Kevin Conroy, because, I mean, Kevin Conroy was the animated version of the Keaton Batman when he first started, right? And I mean, so it gives you that ability to say goodbye to that era of that era. And I love that. So nothing but positive thoughts on that one. Sorry.
I will say this. When Keaton shows up, and I don't think it's directly because of Keaton entirely, I do think he does elevate Miller's performance by interacting with him, so there is definitely Keaton having that influence, but the movie itself, I feel like starts picking up as soon as he shows up. Like, the writing is better, the pacing is better. Like, suddenly, like, the movie that I felt like was spinning its wheels for like a long porch, like, we spent way too much time with the two Barrys. And again, it just feels like they were just paying off, like, oh, we cast these like side characters and we have to give them stuff to do and interact with them and stuff. Right. And like once we get to that halfway point of the movie, when Keaton shows up, like, the whole movie starts firing. And so part of that is his performance. And I did want to mention that I think that he does elevate Miller's performance. I think
you're right.
Yeah. I did want to see this, though, because he is an older Batman, and because he is, like, retired, basically. But on all the scenes when we have Batman fighting or whatever, he is uber Batman, able to do like everything as if he's in peak physical condition. I wanted to see a Batman that's having a harder. I wanted to see the struggle of an older man trying to go back to being Batman. We get the one scene where he's like sewing up like a cut on his arm or whatever, but I feel like that doesn't sell it even as much as in the Justice League movie, when there's the scene where Affleck is just bruised from head to toe and he starts talking about how he should have given this up 10 years ago. And I'm like, Keaton, who's an older man, it's just like, he's nowhere near as messed up as the Affleck version. Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to see more of that, because I like those kinds of stories of like the old guy who's given up like his thing, having to like put the suit back on one more time and fight the good fight. I wanted to see more of that struggle, in it. But yeah, like they gave us a Batman who was like more capable of fighting than any version we've seen in the past in any movie.
Yeah. But realistically, if we just saw him shave that beard, it would have taken the extent of the whole movie. So
yeah, I mean, let's be fair.
The movie was already pretty long. Like we didn't need to see him shave.
Yeah, that was a long haircut. I mean, let's be fair. Barry basically went through every iteration of trying to find Kal-El and could not find him through 50 years worth of databasing, and he didn't use super speed because other Barry 2 was taking a nap, right? So he was non-super speed going through 50 years worth of NASA databasing of satellite imagery, and then Bruce shows up clean. Think about that. How long does it take to go through that much satellite imagery?
He had years of training while he was through all the data.
Why did he just never do Clark Kent Smallville, Clark Kent Kansas?
Right, no.
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
Well, maybe he did, and it didn't turn up anything because that version of Clark never showed up in that unit. Like Clark never showed up in that universe.
But
Zod
he didn't.
I hate to be a jerk about this, but like, sorry, but just to go back. But why didn't younger Barry 2, just go back far enough, rescue Supergirl or Superwoman, and have her go stop Zod when he was still in space and never got to Earth and had no powers yet? He just wasn't trying hard enough.
I think one thing we could say about the Chrono Bowl is you have to get there under your own steam. He can't bring people with him, I think.
Well, I think one thing we could say about Barry, too, is that he was an idiot. So relying on him to go back further and have a better plan was just not in the cards. So,
and we don't know when Kara landed, quite frankly. I think they're still keeping the plot point of she hit that black hole and she ricocheted off of it, but just that couple minutes where she was ricocheting off of it was a couple of decades for her in real time until she got away. So she probably only landed. They never really say when she landed on Earth in this version of they don't say, because she's only 25. So you saying that the Russians have been keeping her in there for decades? That doesn't really track. Right. I much prefer the idea of something happened. She hit a speed bump that caused time dilation. Black hole's the easiest explanation. She just barely brushed up against the event horizon and time dilated, and then she got out of it. And she landed maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and there's just no possible way for her to ever stop Zod because Clark's been dead for 30 plus years.
Well, and just for me to throw my 2 cents in there about Sasha, I know James Gunn wants to do a Supergirl movie. I hope they go back to her and give her the opportunity to have a full movie to herself.
100% agree.
Because I think in the little time that we saw her, she's the main character that I said, I hope I see more, even more so than Michael Keaton. I want to see this version of what her Supergirl would be. This kind of more mature, slightly darker, more troubled, but that there's
more savage.
Deeper heart in there. Yeah.
She didn't grow up with a Ma and Pa Kent to teach her, human morality and stuff, which is evident at the very beginning of the movie. She's like, I don't care. Y'all a bunch of humans that suck as far as I'm concerned. And she goes off, right? And then when she comes back and she fights better than the Cav. We have to compare her to Cavill Superman because she's fighting, the Cavill Zod. And she fights better than Cavill. The Cavill Superman was holding back the whole time because he's like, these are my people. I don't want to hurt them. She's like, IDGAF. She doesn't care, and she is just destroying them. And it's to see a Superman not hold back was really cool to see.
I think the reason why that sells so well, Nate, is because 2 reasons. And it really comes down to the quality of Callie's acting and why we need more of her in the DC universe, which is 1, when you realize that she remembers Krypton. And we only see Krypton for that one blip in Man of Steel. And that version of Krypton did not look like a place I ever wanted to go to. Krypton's supposed to be like a utopia by comparison, right? They're supposed to be, Zod's supposed to be he's a weirdo. We don't like Zod. That version of Krypton that we saw with Russell Crowe
maybe a utopia a while ago, but then they destroyed their planet trying to maintain that utopia.
Yeah, it is a very sus place, you know? And so she's like, but she's like, our planet was a place of hope. Do you know what this symbol means? And when she points to it, when Cavill did it, he goes, do you know what this means? And he goes, it means hope. It doesn't land. When she's looking at Barry Allen and he's got his powers back and she's come back because why did you rescue me? And he was like, because it was the right thing to do. And she's like, do you know what this means? And she just points to it. And that's all you need is to know that she believes in the crest of L. That's it. And she's like, I will unload hell on these people for trying to murder this planet because that's not what Krypton is. That one moment, I mean, I got goosebumps talking about it. It's a truly powerful moment, and it's something that Cavill was never given the opportunity to do because his character was never given that opportunity because he's also fighting the idea of I have to save my human family, but I don't want to hurt my native friends or my native, relatives.
People,
right. But he's also got Pa Kent, Kevin Costner, tin cup philosophy banging around his head of, well, don't try too hard or people might see you. That whole weird damn thing. Yeah. I don't even know what.
For all the flaws in this movie, and maybe this is all credit to the actress, but she managed. It really should have been a lot harder to portray a character who has been tortured and has no desire to see humanity survive, who just wants to rejoin her own species, and and in the space of like a scene or two, go from that to, oh my gosh, my people are slaughtering these humans who did torture me. And by the way, I'm also the good guy here. And just to see her go through all that in the space of 3 or 4 or 5 scenes.
20 minutes of the movie,
exactly.
10 minutes of the movie.
And it was
she turns a major plot point. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's not out of the blue. It's very understandable how she got there.
They show you her progression of thought. They show her save the people who saved her. They show her just lose her crap. I mean, let's be fair. Nobody's calling out the fact that this superwoman murdered people. I mean, she murdered those Russians. Those Russians were dead. I mean, she yeeted a guy into a mountain. That when he made impact, I promise you, he was like a bug on a windshield. That dude was DED dead. And
she was not holding back because they're humans and made of cardboard.
Right.
She didn't care.
She just went after them, and so then you see them say, we need your help or they're going to destroy, our planet. And she's like, why should I save you? They're my people. And then she sees them and it's all nonverbal. And that's, I think, why we're picking her out so much is that they didn't give her a lot of verbiage. They gave her a lot of acting moments where she had to non-verbally convey this.
Yeah, no, I was going to say she's the realization of less is more. Because it's a very minimal performance, but it works. Like she's able to convey a lot with like just her body language and she doesn't have a whole lot of dialogue. So I thought she did a fantastic job with what she had. And I think it would be a shame if they did not do more with her.
Yeah, I can't even imagine a future where Gunn says, yeah, that awesome actress that's getting all the accolades for being Superwoman right now, let's not bring her back as Supergirl. Let's not do that. Like, I can't even imagine a world where that happens, because all you have to do is say this is a world where she made it, but again, she hits the black hole and it took her a couple extra years and she lands in the present, whatever. And you can have the same actress, no problem, and just go. But I also love the fact that when she goes into the Batcave and she sees fried Barry, which, by the way, I love that they kept from Flashpoint, which is the first time he tries to get his powers back, it does not work. And he has to convince Thomas Wayne to plug him back up to the machine again to try a second time. And I love that Michael Keaton definitely did the let's get nuts moment where he's like, you want to get fried by electricity again? You're already going to die. Fine. Like he had no problem slamming that handle down a second time, but it broke. I love that. I love that was very much a Keaton moment. But then her coming in and realizing this is the man who saved me. If this is what he needs, then I'm going to give it to him. And she just the whole scene. It's all conveyed by acting. Less is more. And yeah, I mean, she's fantastic. I mean, her and Keaton really elevated this from being all Ezra Miller power hour to being really quite good in those moments. Those moments are really stand out for me, So yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about the ending scene in the chronosphere. I don't know if we have much more to talk about with that. Anybody have anything that they want to add?
This weekend at Applebee's, they're having a special on chronospheres. They're like $9.99. They really good. Like it's like 6 different appetizers called the chronosphere.
I do have to say, like, they showed the Reeves Superman and the Helen Slater Supergirl.
I did like that.
Nice
that was
touch.
Awesome. That was.
I've heard people upset about that, about Christopher Reeves, like just using
using his
ethical,
image.
Yeah.
Do we know that they didn't ask the family? Yeah.
Did they get?
I'm sure the estate said for 100,000. Sure.
Yeah, for me, as long as the estate is down with it, then
that's what I'm saying.
And it wouldn't have happened without the estate. So obviously,
I think it's weird to assume that the estate wasn't cool with it. Like, without.
I think it's weird that you're getting offended for someone else that you're not involved with.
Right.
That's what I think is weird.
I've seen people online who were.
Well, no, I'm saying it's weird that they assume that nobody was asked for permission or whatever. Like, I always assume there's permission unless the family actually gets on social media and says, "Hey, wait now, you shouldn't have done this."
Exactly
by now.
Right.
Yeah, I think the only person who may not have gotten paid for their likeness was Teddy Sears. And that's because I just read an article earlier today talking about this, because I Googled, because I thought it was John Wesley Shipp for a second as, CW Flash. And I was like, and so I went and I looked and it was Teddy Sears. And in that same article, people were asking him well, how'd you like doing the cameo? He's like, what cameo? People are telling me I'm in this movie, but I didn't film anything. So the only thing I can imagine is they used archival footage from when he did wear the helmet.
No, it's a CGI character that just happens to look like him. They've come forward and said that was completely unintentional, that it has a passing resemblance to him.
Because honestly, it looked more like John Wesley Shipp in the helmet to me.
That's what I thought too. And so when people were saying it was Teddy Sears, I was like, I looked more like a young, like a de-aged John Wesley Shipp to me.
And I was like, oh man, I was kind of hoping it was Shipp. I was like, please let that be Shipp. I would love that. Like just a little wink and a nod to Earth 2 Jay would have been great.
Why was there no Tom Welling? Anybody know why?
Well, they already did 2 Supermans. You're gonna have to do why wasn't there a Brandon Ruth Superman? Why wasn't there?
Why not? Let's go. Are we doing this?
There is a reason. There is a reason why there's not a Brandon Ruth Superman. The reason why is because the Brandon Routh Superman technically already did his. Well, he's supposed to be Christopher Reeve, but also he did hit the Ralph version in the ending of the Arrowverse Flash stuff.
Well, no, I know. I'm just saying, they're not going to have a bunch of different They had 2, which was already was more than any other character they did too. Well, except for the Flash, the Flash.
I'm not going to lie. If I have to choose between another Brendan Ruth Superman or Nicolas effing Cage Superman, I'm going with that every single time. But
I think Nicolas Cage casting was great. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, the one that got snubbed was Linda Carter. I don't know why they didn't do Linda Carter.
Andy Muschietti said that there was a list of people that he wanted that they didn't get, and Linda Carter, or that they didn't get in, and Linda Carter was on the short list that he posted. There were 5 more cameos that he wanted in there that didn't get approved.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Probably
that's
money.
Honestly,
probably just they spent a lot of money getting the other people and just wasn't able to get it
right. And so also probably a length of time, how many more spheres did you want crashing in with more? And I don't know who picked which ones, but it also could have just been a thing of, we're not going to do 15 of these things.
We're going to do the big 2,
again, not think about your Trinity properly, right?
Right. Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the thing. If they did Christopher Reeve, they did Adam West, they needed to do Linda Carter.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. I really think that's a fair comment. I do.
They should have done the 70s TV Shazam. That had the butterflies all over the costume.
Dude, you know what? You're not wrong. I mean, you're really not wrong. I mean, if you're going to do it, right? I mean, there's no reason why they couldn't have pulled every single character that they've ever had.
It's not a comic book where you can just like go through panel by panel with a microscope and be like, okay, here's Crisis on Infinite Earth. Let's track down where all these images came from. Like,
I mean, honestly, that's what people remember from Crisis.
An hour and a half movie,
that story is so like obtuse. I mean, if you've ever gone back and read Wolfman's like Crisis on Infinite Earth, it is an obtuse, repetitious as hell book. But the reason why it's rereadable is because it has just fantastic cameos just littered through it, and you're like, oh, there's that character from the 50s. Oh, there's that character that's not been seen since 1965. And that is a really cool thing to see. So, the thing that pissed me off about the different like spheres, the different Earths, was that they were all Green Lantern Corps colored. I don't know what the hell. Like, I sincerely thought that like I was going to see the Green Lantern Corps come in and tell them that they were violating cosmic law when these spheres started busting in. I was like, are we going to get all the Lantern Corps? I was like, there's going to be a White Lantern Corps and a Green Lantern Corps and the Red Lantern Corps. And I was like, Lars Felice is going to come out, and I was waiting for it. And then it turned out, oh no, these are the multiverses. And I was like, like, I don't understand why they were different color coded. Like, I don't, like, that made no sense to me, other than the fact that they just wanted to find a way to differentiate, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was just a differentiation thing. Like, they wanted different color coding.
But it was just so weird. I was like, so we pulled the Green Lantern thing up, and we're doing that now. But yeah, I was not a huge fan of that particular part of it, but that's a minor gripe. The cameos were far more important to me, especially if this is the send-off of the Snyderverse, and quite frankly, everything that's come before, because I really believe that Gunn has an opportunity here to truly fix something that has been broken probably since the middle of the 90s, which is Warner Brothers' complete misunderstanding of how to make DC accessible when it comes to making movies. And I think that if anybody's going to get it, it's going to be him. And if he can't do it at this point, I don't know. If James Gunn can't get it done, I am very nervous that anybody can, because he gets the characters. He feels it. From what I understand, he was one of the people who kind of came in and helped them do a final polish on the edit for Flash, and said, no, we need to focus more on Supergirl. We need to focus more on Keaton, and kind of help them get things sorted. So I don't know. I feel like this is a great time to say what is past is prologue, and we are now in a completely rebooted universe, and nothing that came before counts, but it all still counts, because of course it all happened, because this is DC. This is where every story matters to somebody, and we're never going to tell you that it's not valid.
So any thoughts about the ending? I mean, Barry, has to go back and change things, to me,
it was the most interesting part of the movie.
Right. Like,
the last 20 minutes was the most interesting part.
Yeah, it's so difficult watching him take the thing out of the cart, because it's just like, I don't know. It felt like he actually, so he causes the murder of his. So before, it's just like, oh well, you have the ability to go back in time and you don't do it, but he actually saves her, and taking it out of the cart feels like he is responsible for her death. And it just it's so hard to watch that, because it's
I
just,
honestly thought
up.
He was gonna have to run to the house and stab his own mom. That's where I thought the movie was going, was he was gonna have to
that's an
do it himself.
That I think is wild and crazy, but I like that notion. I mean, again, it's another one of those hero dilemmas, that you have to allow your mother to die in order for you to
have motivation.
And this is how Snyder wins, because it's the same thing as Clark saying, should I have let the school bus full of children die? And his dad says, maybe.
But I think it's a dark dilemma, but I think that was the one thing that I was interested in what the Snyderverse was doing, was these very heavy-handed superhero dilemmas, and because when you have these abilities to make these grand changes, how these like minute personal things can, or these personalized things can really affect you, I think is a fascinating thing to deal with. Is it me or is it bad writing that we don't see Barry ever make the choice of, okay, I can't change my mom's death, but I can at least go see who did it so I can find them.
Huh.
I did find that a little strange myself, because it seems like that would be the obvious thing to do, is like,
that's
I'm not
what
gonna
I would want to
interfere,
see.
but at least I can find out what happened.
Yeah.
That
would be my cardinal thing as a child. To just walk down and see my mother with a knife in her chest. My lifelong question would be, who did it? And if I have the ability to run at super speeds just to pause and see who's in the house when it happens, that to me is like, how did they miss that?
Well, I think that part of the problem, and again, this comes from the fact that when you think about the fact that this story is only 14 years old, you have to go back to what Jeff Johns did in order to make that happen, which was that he basically said Eobard Thawne is the person who killed Barry's mother. And
who
the reason why
What'd you say?
Yeah, Eobard Thawne. You really going to make me do it again after I already...
Just one more time. I didn't catch it. I got to write it.
Stop it. Stop. Don't twist the knife, all right? The mom's already dead. Okay, but no, seriously, but having Thawne...
we can kill her again.
Yeah, seriously. But having Thawne be the murderer is an interesting twist in the fact that Thawne can never kill Barry, but he can sure make Barry's life hell. That's an interesting story. But you cannot do that unless you have him throughout the whole movie. They did not introduce a Thawne. There is no Thawne. So you then have to basically turn around and say, well, how do we make this work? And is it just a random somebody? That was the route they took. I personally thought the Reverse Flash should have fallen out of the chronosphere right in front of the mother, and he gets her because Barry Prime is trying to stop this one weird version, and that's when Barry 1 realizes, this is what I become. I become the monster that kills our own mother.
Mm-hmm.
But that wouldn't work for the whole can of tomatoes. Dad was there, unless because obviously it was a crime of opportunity, and since there was a man in the house, whoever the murderer was didn't do it. So if it was Reverse Flash, you see what I'm saying?
Except that it means that, but it also fixes the problem that you had, which is the fact that Barry has to give up on this version of the multiverse. He has to give up on that Earth. He just has to let them die. No, he literally has to let them die in order to fix the timeline, because he had to go back. He had to make the tangent. He had to make everything happen. That version, Barry 2, is going to eventually become not evil, but so obsessed that he will inadvertently kill his own mother, which causes the original murder to happen, which closes the loop, which means that he now can fix the cans. So you can do that, and you can make that happen, and you can have it be really potent. But they didn't do that, so they just made it a random guy, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, I think the Reverse Flash, Dark Flash, whatever they called him, I think would have been a better solution. Inadvertently killing your own mother because of a parallel version of yourself who's trying to save his mother, and the whole timeline, ultimately killing her, I think is a much harder lesson. And I think that is the interesting question that Devior was saying earlier, which is divorce. Sorry. Yeah, I got it right. Okay, sorry. Said earlier, which was they're asking really interesting philosophical questions that, quite frankly, they're so dark in a superhero world. Sometimes you just want to have your heroes have fun, right? But if you're going to ask a dark question, you have to have your answer.
Right.
And that's the problem with Man of Steel. That was the problem with Batman v Superman. That's the problem with a lot of the Snyderverse. They love to ask the question, but they rarely have the answer.
Right.
And at least in this version of The Flash, they didn't ask the dark question of, well, what happens if you become your own villain? Like, he sees it, he stops it, and then Barry gets to go and, kind of set things as right as close as he can, and still gets George Clooney as his daddy. But you know what
Number
I mean?
3.
That Dad 3. But at least, they were able to close that idea down and make it work. Whereas I think that in lesser capable hands, I think that it wouldn't have landed as well. But if they had to go and really ask that question, I think that would have been an acceptable answer of, and it really goes back to the Christopher Nolan question. If you're around long enough, you see yourself become the villain. And he literally watched himself live long enough to become the villain. Like, he watched himself do it.
Mm. Yeah, it's really weird because if you read the interviews that Muschietti has done, Muschetti's like, yeah, like we have to do Reverse Flash in the second movie because he's the one that killed the mom. But nothing in the movie, the way the movie is set, makes it seem like it's the Reverse Flash who would like kill the mom. Because if it's just the presence of the dad was enough to keep whoever killed the mom from killing the mom, why would the presence of the dad stop the Reverse Flash? And so it's like, I don't know. It just makes so again, it's just weird because again, they differentiate Dart Flash from Reverse Flash and
right. That's the only time that Nora Allen was ever alone for the rest of her life was when his dad went to go get a can of tomatoes for the last 10 years. What the hell?
And on top of that, think about it. There's someone out there who wants to kill someone. So instead of killing Nora Allen, because there's a guy there, he goes to the next house and kills the person there. He goes and kills Joe.
Right. Well,
my God! Can you imagine if they actually got Joe from the show? And he just, that would have been so weird.
Yeah, the TV show version of Frequency actually examine that kind of thing of we fixed things, mom's alive, and this serial killer survived and killed 50 more people. Whoops, so.
It's not enough to save mom, he needs to stop the villain,
Right, exactly.
Which is why I think the casualness of her murderer is probably the better way to go. Because I haven't said this yet, but one thing that I'm really proud of is I think that the movie, all flaws examined, bad CGI, Miller's problematic issues, those choices made and then brought into the character, which I don't necessarily feel were reflective of what Barry Allen represents, but this version, fine. All of the flaws, I still think it's actually a pretty good, solid, decent movie. It's not the home run, oh my gosh, this is Avengers, Endgame kind of where, okay, we've wrapped up the whole DCEU at this point. It's okay. You did it. You made the landing, and it's a pretty good landing. It wasn't your best landing, but you got there. They didn't blow the ship up, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the fact that this is probably going to be the last time for a while that we're going to get a Flash movie, and I'm kind of okay with that. No. But I say this for a reason. The reason why I'm okay with that is because Ezra Miller, problematic issues and all, does not deserve to have the cowl of the Flash, much less the notoriety of a blockbuster $1 billion movie to then catapult him past any misdeeds that he might be currently going through. And I feel like there was an opportunity here where Warner Brothers was betting that they could just basically buy goodwill and keep this franchise going. And I think that the appropriate response is this movie is decent. It is good. The Flash deserves better, but not with this as the Flash. And I feel like this is where consequences should have happened. And I think I've talked about this. I think Nathan knows my theory. And I feel like this should have really happened, which is I feel like they could have made one change to this movie. And if they would have let the cat out of the bag on the premiere night, I think this movie would have done far better than it has in theaters. And this is the theory. Have the entire movie happen exactly as it is. Have him change the cans, do everything, have him go in, and as soon as he gets back to the present, don't have the court scene where his dad is being exonerated. Cut to, you're in the Batcave, or you're in a restaurant, you're wherever the hell you are. He's at the bar with Arthur Curry. I don't care. And on the TV, it shows, I forgot his dad's name. Barry's dad. Henry, thank you. Dear Lord, my brain is late. My brain just completely turned off. Henry Allen exonerated, new video evidence, blah, 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 right? And they show him look up, and then they show Ezra Miller move the can, and then they pull back. And so then you see somebody new talking to Bruce Wayne, whomever it is. And he's like, okay, I get why you look different. I'm not necessarily exactly back in my own timeline, but why do I look different? And you introduce the new person who is now going to be the Flash going forward. And that's going to be how you introduce your new Flash. Ezra Miller is no longer the Flash because his parents got horny on a Tuesday instead of a Thursday. And because of that, a different zygote generated. So it's essentially the same Barry with one tiny little change. And that's all you have to do. And you fix it, because then you say, we filmed this whole movie. We can't just trash it. But you know what we can do? We can have a line that basically was already said in the movie. You can have Bruce Wayne, whomever, say, Barry, time travel has consequences. And you're out of the problem. Ezra Miller can still be the star of the movie. People can still feel okay going to it. Basically give him the middle finger and say, you would have been the star for an ongoing series if you would not have been such a piece of crap human. And just move on with your life.
I think it's giving the public too much credit to think that Ezra Miller is the reason they didn't see this movie. I think it's more because all they had to go on with The Flash was the Justice League movie, which also didn't get a lot of people. So there wasn't a lot of positive buzz. And the people who did know about it were like, this one doesn't matter. Like, this is the lame duck DC year where nothing matters. I mean, they're trying to combat that with Blue Beetle, by now everybody coming forward and saying, no, Blue Beetle counts. It's going to count. It's going to count. So hopefully Blue Beetle will do well, but Shazam 2 did horribly, and there's no scandal there. That was just, it did horribly, and The Flash did horribly. I hear what so I don't know that the public cares. I don't know if the public knows about Ezra. Like, I don't know that general people, the people who go to movies that not just because they're superhero movies, but just go to movies, understand the problematic, the problems this person has had.
All I can tell you is what I hear when I go to conventions and when I talk to people about The Flash, like in passing. Like, I've had a number of get-togethers lately with friends and whatnot, and a lot of their kids are now at the age where like they're really into comic books and stuff, and so they find out about like our fun room and all the stuff, and they're like, "Oh my god!" And I'm like, "Yeah, what do you guys think about The Flash?" And they go, "Ooh, Ezra Miller." Like, and these are just kids. Like, I think that we are not giving
kids know more, I think, than parents. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine anyone at my work, like, and people at my work are like casual. Like, they might watch like there's a person at my work who's seen 6 Marvel movies. And not like all at once, but just like spread out over the whole time of Marvel. He's seen 6 Marvel movies. I doubt he knows who Ezra Miller is. But
I think that I think that when you look at the coveted market of 13 to 32 or whatever it is, that age range that every piece of advertising usually tries to go after for the big dollars, I think that age range knows.
I definitely think it's fair to say that the Ezra controversy was a factor. Whether it's the biggest factor, we'll never necessarily know. But yeah, it definitely didn't help. It was one of several anchors around this movie. Ezra, the fact that it is the end of the DCEU. I mean, think about this. Think about the fact that, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, but they had 4 movies coming down the pipeline for the DCEU, and they still said, hey, we're going to start all over again before those 4 movies aired. Imagine if Marvel had said, hey, we've got our whole slate of phase 4 movies coming up, and they're still going to come out, but then we're going to start over with a whole new universe, a whole new continuity. DC knows all 4 of these were going to bomb. They knew it going in. If there was a surprise hit, they would have adapted, but they went in expecting all 4 of these to totally suck. And Batwoman 2, or Batgirl 2, probably, which is why they didn't even release that one.
Well, no, because when Batgirl was made, it was before Discovery. Discovery took over after, while it was already in process.
Before the announcement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they were in post. I mean, they were basically mixing audio when Batgirl got shelved. I mean, she was like, that movie was done.
These movies were planned back before Discovery took over also. So I don't think the original plan was that. But yes, I believe Discovery knew when they made the announcement.
They could have, exactly. They could have held off on that announcement. They could have kept it secret or whatever. But from advanced screenings or whatever their internal, logic, they knew that Shazam, Flash, Blue Beetle probably, and Aquaman 2 definitely were going to bomb.
I think one of the big problems, especially when you look at Shazam and Flash, Aquaman 2 has more or less been on schedule. It's fallen a little behind, but it's more or less lining up fairly well to where they wanted to leave it. Shazam 2 needed to already have been in pre-production when Shazam 1 came out, quite frankly, because you needed those kids to be the right age, and you needed to keep that because when Shazam came out, I remember people were like, wow, like we turned a corner. Like, this was actually, it wasn't like the strongest DC movie, but you know what? I'm excited to see more like of what's going to happen here.
A fun movie.
Yeah, it was a fun movie. Yeah. And then you waited like 5 years? What was it?
Well, a little thing called COVID hit. That put everything on hold.
Yes, and I understand that. But at the same time, I also know that if they were already well into pre-production and they had this story on lock, they could have done their isolation filming like they did for so many others. So there's a way to get around that during the COVID era. Just like they should have. Yeah.
They should have treated the Shazam movies like Sony did the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, like literally working on the next one before the first one's even in the theaters. Yeah. But that's been the DCEU from the beginning, missed opportunity after.
But yeah, we're playing this in hindsight, where the first Shazam did very well. They didn't know it was going to do well until it came out. So you only get that sort of pre-planning when you know something's going to be a hit, so you're already working on the next one.
I disagree for one reason. And this is why I disagree. And I think it goes all the way back to Marvel Phase 1, which is Marvel Phase 1, there was no proven commodity. There was no chance that they knew that they had a hit on their hands, except they believed that they were going to make a good product. And they said, we're going to approach this like we're winners. And if we don't knock every single one out of the park, that's okay. People will keep coming back, and we're going to build up, and we're going to make them love us. And if you look at the numbers, Iron Man was the dark horse that came out of the night that then just lit itself on fire, like, I'm here, and became like a giant flaming freaking unicorn of awesome. And it was like Deadpool's right at like, I'm making all the money.
All right, but there's a real difference with Marvel Phase 1.
Let me try to get through my thought. I'm sorry. I know I go on rants, and I know you like to try to jump in, but I got to get this out because, like, I know we're getting near the end here. But when you really think about it, they knew that it was an all or nothing affair. So they bet on 5 movies. And if you look at the numbers, Iron Man had done killer numbers, but they had already gotten in the bank. They had already started producing Thor, Hulk, and they were already working on Captain America, the first Avenger. And then Iron Man did so well, they had enough already in the bank that they were able to fast track Iron Man 2 because they were convinced that Iron Man was going to do well. And then boom, they went into Avengers. And they were able to make that happen. And the problem with DC is DC's always like, we will make more movies if this one is successful. So let's try to take all the things that worked in these movies instead of believing in building up a concrete foundation. And that's the difference. They have always worked from a place of fear where they're not convinced that they're making something good, so they won't risk it. They've got to believe in risking it. Marvel literally put their entire catalog of characters, publication rights, cinematic rights, everything on the line to a freaking hack job company. These are those companies that if you don't make payments when you're supposed to make payments, they do what they did to Sears. They basically chop up the most important parts, they sell it off bit by bit, and they basically make their money back doing that way. And Captain America could have belonged to, I don't know, Dark Horse or something, if they had failed, but they didn't because they believed in their product and they did so well, Disney bought them. And Warner Brothers does not have that confidence. They work from a place of fear. They always work from a place of this will not work. And that's their failure.
Well, all right. So first of all, that's typical though. Like Marvel is the unusual one. But second of all, what's different is that those were all separate franchises. So if any one of them had failed, it was okay because maybe if Iron Man isn't popular, maybe people will like Thor or vice versa. And so they actually had a much better plan because it was something that didn't the fact that all of them worked let them do Avengers. But the fact of the matter was they had it set up so that failure was also something they could absorb. Whereas Shazam is just one franchise, so they couldn't plan like we're doing for Shazam 2 when we don't even know if Shazam 1 is gonna hit. That to me is the difference. They didn't except go back and look at the Phase 1 numbers. Iron Man did well, Thor did middling, okay, meh. Captain America did middling, okay, meh. Hulk was a disappointment. But Iron Man made so much money, they're like, we can ride this to Iron Man 2. And then they just set up Avengers to get it out there. And when you got to Avengers, then everybody liked Thor. Everybody liked Hulk. Then Thor 2 came out. Thor 2 was considered a bomb. Thor didn't really get legs under it until the third one. And Marvel's like, we're just going to keep going. No, go look at the numbers. Thor 2, The Dark Age, did not do what they thought it was going to do. It did fine, but it didn't do Marvel money. Okay, we're going to move on right now.
But I'm just saying, this is the problem with what they did. Right. They set up Shazam, and they're like, we could have. They showed Superman show up. Shazam could have had a crossover. You could have had Gal Gadot show up. You could have had Bruce Wayne show up. You could start to. The first 5 Marvel movies are literally standalone subjects with one little end sequence at the end that teases that the next one is connected. Mm-hmm. They could have done this. They could have bet on themselves, but they don't do that.
Right.
And that's what I'm frustrated about with WB, is that they don't bet on themselves. They've gotten themselves so in the hole that Discovery now owns them, and they're basically being rated for parts.
Right.
It's literally like, if you go back to Batman and Robin, way back in the day, there's a throwaway line where George Clooney says, that the circus is halfway to Metropolis by now, and we lost it as fans at the time. Oh my gosh, they referenced Metropolis and Superman in this movie, and yeah, it's funny because Warner has had all that infrastructure. Warner Brothers should have made that interconnected universe 10 years at most, or if not more, before Marvel ever even had the idea of doing it.
I mean, that's a fair criticism. Yeah, that's a fair criticism. But also Marvel and how Marvel Studios works is unique, and there's all sorts of things that worked in their favor to do that. Whereas DC has always been something where Warner Brothers, as a studio, just takes from the DC creative and does a thing. They didn't have their own studio that was just like the DC studios. And so there's a whole different structure and everything.
Well, and to be fair to Marvel, all the credit we give to Marvel, in reality, that was Disney. That was Disney saying, hey,
No, this plan was already. Marvel Studios existed and actually had a deal with Paramount before Disney bought them. So this was all in place beforehand. Phase 1 was in place before Disney bought them.
Yeah, Marvel bet on itself. Marvel took a huge bet on themselves to do it. I forget what it was. It was like $1.5 billion or something.
I followed all this at the time. Believe me, I was there, reading every little tidbit. So
I like how you said that. I was in the room. I was taking notes. Because you know what? If anybody here could have done it, it would have been Nathan. Nathan would totally have been in that room, sliding under the chair, just like Loki.
Yeah.
Totally.
But anyway, all right. But let's bring it home, guys. Let's bring it home. All right. Anything more you wanted to say about the Flash movie before we go? Daviar.
You know what? It's a tragedy, man, that we didn't get to see this movie without all the baggage that Ezra carried with it. Because right now, that will forever that tarnish so much of this. And now there is this active engagement to be against it and to speak ill of it. And I think that'll tarnish anything that kind of comes from this movie moving forward. So, and I hate that because I wonder what the conversations would have been, what it could have led to. I hope this doesn't tarnish people like Sasha moving on to play Supergirl at another point in the future or whatever that may be. So I just hope that the stench of all of this, I'm interested to see what the domino effect of the stench of all this would be. I'm right there with Sean. I'm a little less than Sean. I don't think it's a very good movie. I think it's an okay movie at best. I mean, I would rather watch it than Thor: Love and Thunder. But it is. There's a lot of holes there for the character like this. And so it's unfortunate, but we'll just kind of see what happens in the Gunverse and how this all kind of resolves. So glad to kind of have it behind us in a way.
Okay, Nate.
Wow. I think it's an okay movie. For $250 million, I would have expected more. The plot isn't terrible. The writing is okay. The acting is okay. I think a lot of my problems rely on the visuals of the movie that kind of take me out of it. And then sort of the ickiness of watching someone I know dealing with mental health issues being exploited for dollars is kind of how I feel about it. It just feels icky when I watch Ezra Miller on screen and him being kind of weird and awkward and neurotic. And maybe he's just a really brilliant actor, but knowing what I know about his personal life colors that. And I tried to separate it, but it's an okay movie, but for $200 million, it's wrapping up the Snyder's verse kind of thing. It falls way short of being a summer blockbuster.
Yeah, it still blows my mind with like people who have done far less getting penalized and their careers getting tanked, that Miller's been able to just sort of
the
ride
saddest
this
part
out.
of this movie is that Sasha Cale and are in this movie and give incredible performances. Michael Keaton and Sasha giving incredible performances, and it's just sort of dragged down by the weight of the failures of Warner Brothers executives. I'm not going to blame the directors or the writers or anything. I think they did what they could do with what they had, and they did okay.
I mean, a lot of this stuff was just like reported in the last year or so. So like things were written, like actors were like all of this was moving forward well before. Like there was like one incident I remember reading about a long time ago about Miller strangling somebody at a con, and it was kind of unclear whether that really happened or not. It seemed like it could have been a rumor. It was just the last year. It was just like, oh my God, it was just report after report after report with video evidence for a lot of it, and all sorts of stuff where it was like, oh, there's real problems here,
Yeah, so. I mean, I never really paid much credence to the rumors. It was the police reports and the court documents that I was paying attention to for Miller.
And the movie was pretty much done at that point. They did do some reshoots, but I mean, the movie, like the main movie, was done at that point.
And the movie was the parts that didn't have any CGI on it were pretty good. Like I said, the writing, the overall plot was good. It just gets dragged down really hard by its other failures. So it's frustrating. Like I felt when I watched Black Adam. It's just like, this could have been so awesome, and it could have really put DC on level with Marvel, but they just keep shooting for the moon and missing it every time instead of taking little stabs at it.
You feel really awful that I had you watch Black Adam because you keep bringing it up every time you're Nathan, on the show.
I don't know what I got to do to start watching the good movies to get on these panels, but you keep sticking me with these movies, and I had to finish watching the Willow series twice, so because it got delayed so long, and then I had to watch Black Adam, and now I had to watch this movie. It's getting bad. Like I feel like you don't like me anymore. It's getting personal.
Good thing you didn't have to watch Shazam: Fury of the Gods.
No, you didn't.
No, well, I did. I was on that one,
and we all agreed that it didn't deserve like the numbers it got, and that we all really liked it. So I mean,
yeah. I mean, it was actually really good. It was not bad overall. But this movie, nah. Yeah. It's getting the box. It's getting the box office it deserves. And don't listen to any of the DC pick me boys on TikTok who are saying this is better than Spider-Verse. This is not better than Spider-Verse. There's no artistic choices in here to justify.
All right, we got to move on. But the marketing for this movie has been insane. Like everybody, like all the marketing was like, this is the greatest movie ever, like the best movie ever. And like I said, Tom Cruise was quoted as saying it too. And it's just been like, I thought going into it that this must be a fantastic movie. Like the reason they kept Miller must have been this movie is so perfect that to change any one element of it would be to derail the movie that they knew was perfect. And watching the movie and just kind of being meh at the end of watching it, I was just like, why were you putting it out there like that this was the greatest superhero movie? Like all your marketing centered around that. I don't know what kind of
Scientology money was involved in this movie.
No, I think honestly they were overcompensating for what was happening behind the scenes. So they knew that there was going to be a lot of bad press, so they got every single flack that they could to basically generate as much hype as possible.
Marvel is taking notes on how to handle Jonathan Majors for the future.
But you see, I think Jonathan Majors is a completely different situation because there's like evidence now that's refuting a lot of that.
Yeah,
so,
but we gotta move on, guys. We're not talking about Jonathan Majors right now. All right, Ryan, any thoughts on the Flash we didn't get to that you just wanted to say real quick?
It was, if you could set aside the Ezra stuff, it was a pretty good third Flash movie. It was a terrible first Flash movie. And it seems like the behind the scenes, the powers that be didn't learn anything from the Ezra controversy. I didn't mention it, but like the very opening scene, the title sequence, where in the very beginning where Flash looks over and they're like young girls, just losing it, fangirling about him. That immediately just grossed me out and set me into a cringe mode with
because
respect
of the
to
grooming.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. No, I know.
Ezra,
Yeah.
It's like that. Even like that would have been so easy to fix, before this movie came out. That one little thing. And it's like when I saw that, I thought, okay, they're doubling down on it and they're just going full steam. So it was hard to divorce Ezra from the movie, but assuming you could, a decent, like I said, second or third a Flash movie. One thing, a name we have not mentioned, I don't think anyone's mentioned this in the entire podcast, was the fact that Iris had 3 scenes in this entire movie. Iris. And the fact that she was so underused, and I don't know how they could have used her with this storyline. There's really no way they could have. But the first Flash movie with Iris West should have Iris in it more than this one did. I mean,
they were honoring a contract for someone who was cast back in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was just painful. I almost wish they hadn't had her in it at all, rather than, or have her in the very end, like a reporter coming up and going, Iris West, with the Citizen, or something like that. But it was hurt. It hurt a lot.
I mean, they didn't answer the important question, whether or not she was a blogger that hit it rich and has a multi-million-dollar company, like the CW version. All right, Sean.
Don't be that guy. All right, come on. Like, really? No, I fully agree with everybody here. Honestly, again, I've always said since they introduced him, Miller was the wrong choice. Miller's approach to Flash was wrong. Miller's approach to Barry was wrong. Snyder's approach to Barry was wrong. And we have been retroactively trying to fix that. And I feel that at this point, Miller had finally really gotten their running legs, so to speak, their sea legs in this movie. I really feel like they had put on the best performance they could with this character. And I really liked a lot of the stuff they did with modern Barry, with Barry Prime, because then they could tap back into that juvenile version of themselves from the previous movies and go, oh God, I was terrible. And that kind of self-reflection, I think, was actually really clever. But I feel like when you're dealing with a flawed universe already, when you're dealing with a flawed premise, when you're dealing with a flawed production company that keeps trying to do things behind the scenes, between the movies, and just say, oh yeah, this happened off screen, we're too used to these movies being like episodes of TV shows. We want to see the big moments. We want to see the things happen. Yes, fulfilling the contract with Iris, Kiersey Clemons, was painful to watch because that actress didn't do a damn thing wrong to be given that kind of crap as far as, hey, you get to show up and be moderately interested in Ezra Miller for 3 scenes and then that's it. She didn't deserve that fate as an actress because that's a throwaway scene. That gives her the same amount of levity and weight as Patty Spivot had in this movie, where she's throwing freaking marshmallows into people's mouths. I mean, there was just no reason for it. This is a movie that suffered from what I think is a lot of rewrites. I think this is like, honestly, I think it's like the most perfect Flashpoint movie ever made, or Flashpoint approach ever made, because Flashpoint is about trying to fix a problem that happened in the past over and over and over again until you realize you can't do it. And I feel like that's what this movie is.
It's a metaphor for the DCEU.
I think it's a metaphor for the entire DCEU, right? Like, I think it really is, because it's clear that this was not the 5th, 6th, 8th, 9th, 10th draft of the movie. They clearly kept revising it through COVID. They clearly kept reshooting it and reapproaching it. And they spent 5 years from when this was supposed to be out to when it actually was released. 5 years they worked on this thing. And they kept having to tinker it until the last couple months. Like, this basically was the equivalent of a wet film, which, for those of you out who don't know, was a term they used to use back in the day, which meant that people were so editing it so last minute that when they were finally processing the film, it was still wet as it went into the film reel to do its premiere in front of an audience. That's what this movie basically was. And that's the flaw, is that they did not know what they were doing. But as a metaphor, I think it works great. I think that there are a lot of great character moments. I think that this movie will probably be remembered as, if we're lucky, the breakout moment for Sasha Calle. I think that she will probably go on to have a pretty strong career. I really feel that even if she never is Supergirl/Superwoman again, I really feel like she has now popped that bubble of, okay, there's something about this actress. We need to see more.
She's going to do great things in the Marvel universe.
She's got a Netflix series coming.
I keep saying I love that DC is alienating all these great actors, and so they can go right into Marvel's open arms.
I'm saying, right? I mean, like it's a little nutty that this is where we are. It was great to say goodbye to Michael Keaton. It was fantastic to say goodbye to him. I am so happy that we get to say goodbye to the Snyderverse. When Aquaman 2 finally washes ashore dead fish style and just gasps this last gasp as the epilogue to this, I'm totally okay with it. The fact that it literally is the epilogue to this movie is all the metaphor you need for what Aquaman 2 is going to be. And I'm okay with that.
Just imagine Aquaman washing ashore with a giant six-pack ring around him. So
he's choking on it.
His own gear ring. Oh my God. That would be the most metal way of ending the DC universe. Final scene of Aquaman 2. He is choked to death on a plastic ring from the six-pack of beer that he just drank, and he is choked to death, and he washes up ashore. And then Warner Brothers decided to just go full-on ecological messaging and says, littering kills. Take better care of your planet or Aquaman dies.
It'd be like choking on a straw, I think. It'd be a plastic straw.
Right? Like, imagine Momoa pulling a straw out of his nose. Like, you know what? That's kind of what I want.
Too. He would do it.
You know what? Considering the fact that he started that business where you have the recyclable solo cups.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he really is about into the environment and whatnot. Like, I'm actually, like, I would like to see that kind of Aquaman movie where they just say, screw it. Like,
it ends there. Then Henry Cavill walks onto the beach wearing a suit saying, something, this is what pollution brings us. Just turn it into a whole,
Or you pan to Henry Cavill overlooking the beach and a tear is streaking down his cheek.
Yes. And then just to salt the wound at the very end, have the classic 70s voice. Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice, and flash to it, and all you have is, what was the name of the monkey?
Gleep?
Gleep? Just have Gleep sitting there. Everybody's dead. Everybody's gone. There's nobody left. It's just Gleep in this version of the DC universe. Just like, oh my God, it would be the best. Like, at a certain point, embrace the fact that this is the swan song. And I mean, honestly, all of that included, I still like the movie. Like, I enjoyed it. Like, but there are problems. And a lot of the problems are, obviously, Ezra Miller is going through some serious mental issues. They need help. I hope they get the help they need. I hope that they're sincere and that one day they might actually be able to do something with their career where they don't have this hanging over them. I hope that, we can go to a time in the future where we don't have to be privy to everybody's movements about this stuff. Like, honestly, I really started divorcing myself from all the gossip stuff as I can, which is why I'm so mad that I know about this Miller stuff, because I couldn't get away from it because it's my boy, The Flash. The fact that this is my boy's first big cinematic outing on his own, and the fact that we needed Batman and Supergirl and Wonder Woman to get to the finish line really upsets me. But that's because that's how they built the Snyderverse. The Snyderverse never lets characters stand on their own 2 feet. I mean, seriously, look at it. The only one that ever stood on its own, really, was Man of Steel. After that, they kept coming up with these little clever cameos all over the damn place. I think the original Wonder Woman...
Shazam stood on its own.
No, because we had Henry Cavill, that we had the little...
we had the body of...
Yeah, but I'm just saying, right? Yeah, but still, there was still the beat of wink, wink. I mean, they didn't.
Oh no, Wonder Woman didn't stand on its own because it was bookended by the thing in the present time where Bruce Wayne sends her the photo.
Right.
Yeah.
I just it just bugs me. It bugs me because they want to make it this intricate, interconnected universe, but they keep doing everything off screen.
Yeah.
And that really pisses me off because I'm like, either be like Marvel and follow the damn formula. They've laid it out for you. It's not like they're hiding it. There's 10 years worth of documentation, and you've been doing this long enough. You could adjust or don't. and let these heroes, like, let the Flash stand on its own 2 feet, like actually do a phase 1 kind of thing and wink and nod a little bit, but basically let the Flash be the Flash. They didn't do it. Yeah.
DC is like watching my 4-year-old try to put socks on. Like, I know he's going to do it eventually, but he's going to do it himself. And I'm like, it's a lot easier if you just bunch it up and put your toes in first, and then everything lines up. Okay, now your heel is on the top of your foot. That's not going to work. And they insist that it works, and then they go to school with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like eventually DC/Warner Brothers is going to figure out how to do DC Comics correctly, and we're going to have a golden age of DC movies. It's going to happen. But I am 100% convinced it's going to be completely by accident. It's going to be that moment where you have all the chimpanzees in the infinite room trying to type out Shakespeare, and you finally got that one. That's how it's going to happen. It's going to be in the multiverse, somewhere mathematically infinitesimal away that I will never witness, but it will happen. And that makes me feel a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm ranting about this a little bit because it's been weighing on me a lot, Nathan. And I was like, you're bringing me on to say goodbye to Flash twice in the span of weeks. And this is a hard thing to do because they didn't even acknowledge, not only did they get the powers and the people wrong, they also fundamentally didn't even thank the people who got them there. They didn't thank the people who made these characters who they were. John Broome, one of the greatest Flash writers of all time. Gardner Fox, who literally created the multiverse. That, in the most sly, awesome way, because Marvel's stupid, as a comic book writer, made themselves Earth 616, right? Isn't that their Earth designation?
I mean, but that's a fairly recent thing that they
Prime
gave
is
the numbers.
616.
Well, no, but I mean, like, but they're 616. Like that, they've been that for like 20, 25 years or so. That's a low-key jab saying that Marvel is part of the DC universe because the first Earth is DC 1, right? So, like, that's Gardner Fox. Gardner Fox made the multiverse. All multiverses come after Gardner Fox. Carrie Bates, amazing writer, did so many great things with it. Jeff Johns, for his stupid contribution of killing his mom, prior to that, had done amazing work with The Flash. Absolutely glorious work. And then Mark Waid, literally the person who I weigh all other Flash writers against. Not a single one of those amazing creators, not one of them were given proper due consideration, nod, or thanks, like true thanks. And I don't like that. I don't like how they've handled The Flash, but I still enjoyed the movie. And there are things that I really enjoyed about it. But as a Flash fan, I am disappointed. I'm sad I have to say goodbye to a character who might have actually been able to do something really cool until they finally bring him back. And I'm really, really frustrated at the fact that people have gotten to see a definitive version of Batman, Wonder Woman, Wonder Woman twice, definitive version of Superman. I still have yet to see my definitive version of The Flash. And that upsets me. So my final thoughts are, you know what? I am a DC fanboy. I'm a pick-me DC guy, but this movie has problems. But it's still a pretty good movie in the context of the story, in the context of Michael Keaton, in the context of Callie, in the context of them actually saying goodbye to this world. They did a pretty good job. As a Flash movie, I feel it stumbles. As an Ezra Miller vehicle, I feel like it is appropriate for them to understand that there are consequences to bad behavior, and this is how you need to understand that. And I'm glad that this is not a movie that did so well that Warner Brothers can just throw money at the problem. They now have to address it and say, you can't be Flash anymore. And I'm happy for that. And I'm sorry to bring the room down. I don't want to end this on a big, sad note, but it really needs to be said that this was not how it was supposed to happen, but this is how it broke down. And when I say I still enjoyed this movie, that's me taking all of this anger, pain, and frustration of loving this character for 40 years and putting it on Front Street and saying it's still a movie that's actually pretty good, that with all these flaws, I can still enjoy. And I would like to now finish on an uplifting note, and I want to bring back up one very, very, very important thing. Of all the actors who did all the great things, I don't care if it was CG or if it was just taking a long time with a high-speed camera. Every damn red cent they spent on that dog for that end sequence as he's falling, watching the Flash saving all those babies, and that dog has a panicked look like, please save me, was worth every penny. I cried laughing so hard at that. Thank you for giving me Flash Dog. I don't know where my life was before this, but I do know now that I love that dog, and I love that they did that. It was a great way to end the movie. And I'm also very happy that we got an Aquaman moment where Aquaman decides his bed is the puddle on the sidewalk. That was...
Yeah, it was Jason Momoa just walking off the set of Fast 10 coming
God,
in. Doing on the
He
scenery.
didn't know they were filming. He thought that,
he thought he was so
perfect.
Yeah.
There you go. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, I guess at the end, what I say about the movie is that it pulled mediocrity out of the jaws of defeat. You know, as far as quality, how I feel about it, it was such a mixed bag. It did get better as it went, though. So I mean, that's the best I can recommend for it. Like, I wasn't really feeling it in the beginning, and I feel like it got better as it went, but it still wasn't great. The one thing I want to bring up, though, and I do feel it is kind of a slight, and I do feel like it is kind of a missed opportunity, is that I do feel like Grant Gustin should have had a cameo in this movie. I do feel like, no matter how you feel about the Flash show, it did start out well. It did start out, the first season of The Flash was actually really, really good. And Grant Gustin has kept this character alive in the public, imagination for 9 years. And I feel like, especially since Ezra was on an episode of The Flash for a brief cameo during Crisis, I feel like it was only fair to give Grant a cameo in the Flash movie. And, I don't know what happened there. I don't know if people just didn't ask him, or, if I don't know what fell through there, but I do feel like that was a missed opportunity. I do feel like they should have done that. For all the cameos that they did have, I did feel like there should have been room for that. But yeah, I mean, we've talked about the Flash now for 3 hours, so we got to wrap it up here. So
1.5 hours shorter than Gargoyles. Gargoyles episode still.
If we're also being fair, if you cut out all of my segments, this is a brief 45 minutes.
That's true.
Like, you guys were on target and amazing, and you were also extremely lenient with me. And this is. It's hard talking about this movie for me. I mean, there was literally a point where yesterday I almost messaged Nathan like, I'm not going to do it, but Nathan knows that I will go see anything Flash, and I will stand by my guy to at least go and witness the horribleness that may occur. Yeah.
Sean, I say this with love, but when we record the series finale next week or 2 weeks or whenever it is, I'm going to take an edible before we record. So I just want you to know that right now.
Yeah, but by the way, anybody listening to this, I don't know how
that
much
are completely legal in whatever state Ryan lives in.
Yes, absolutely.
He's not
legal.
committing any crimes.
No, it is completely legal. Right. Please don't visit me, Batman. No, but also whatever Nathan edits out of this, guys, trust me, it was appropriate. I ranted a lot during this, so thank you, Nathan, for leaving whatever parts of it that made it through.
Okay. Yeah, it just
good editing. They'll never know.
I can't do a Flash thing without you, Sean. I mean, that would just be wrong. But all right, but yeah, let's say goodbye. Let people know where they can find us online. So, Sean, let's start with you.
Sure. I've been pointing everybody towards our Instagram lately, which is at PopCycle. So you can basically find our new artwork. We're basically posting there every day. We're doing a TikTok. At PopCycle will get you to a lot of our artwork. If you want to follow me personally on Instagram, you can also follow me at Numaz, which is PNEUMAZ, and that will get you to most of my other socials as well. So, but yes, thank you so much for having me on. Again, sorry for being the guy who was the Uber fan who was hot. I was very bipolar in this episode, I know. It's a hard day, man, but I still love talking about it, and I'm glad that you had me on. So thank you for letting me be here.
You're welcome, Sean. Like I said, it wouldn't be the same without you.
Appreciate it.
All right, Nate.
You can find me on Mastodon, hackyderm.io, at Nate Bob Benton. And sometimes I've actually found myself back on Facebook, which is weird. But you know, everything else is collapsing. So there's no more Reddit, there's no more Twitter. So everything's collapsing in on itself. And I'm going back to my original social media, which is Facebook to begin with. So
well, you're not truly lost until you go back to LiveJournal.
It's a good idea.
You can have your own personal WordPress site again.
Yeah, that's actually not that hard. It's super easy, WYSIWYG, you know.
Right? Yeah.
Daviar?
Yeah. Hey, check out live theater whenever you can, wherever you are. Up here at the Stratford Festival Theater. So I have about 12 shows going on right now. So yeah, that's what I always shout out.
What is live theater? Can you tell us a little bit more? Because I have no idea what that is, but it sounds like
live theater, performing theater, Fox Theater, Broadway, things like that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So like a movie, but people stand on a stage.
Yeah. They stand on these
I didn't.
and people perform. So yeah.
No, I wasn't being facetious. I thought it might have been like the name of like his comedy troupe or something. Like they called themselves live theater. So I wanted to know more because I was like, that sounds interesting.
He's like live theater. You go watch your TikTok.
It's live with a Y.
No. Live theater, wherever area you might be in, you know, just like that's like support live theater right now because things are still trying to come back post COVID. So that's the thing I'm always kind of promoting out there.
All right, and Ryan.
Yeah.
Well, you can find me on a lot of these 42cast podcasts. We've referenced the Shazam ones. I'm on that. I'll be on the Flash TV series ones. If you're just a glutton for punishment and you want to, follow those up. You can find me on social media. I am most active on Facebook because I don't know why, because I'm a creature of habit. And don't quote me on this, but Tom Cruise says that my website, geeksranger.com, is the best website on the internet. So you should check that out. It's got relevant data up to 2019,
All right. So Sean, Nate, Daviar, and Ryan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome, guys.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good night, folks.
And that's it for our Flash episode. How did you feel about this episode? How do you feel about the ending of the DCEU? Yeah, we have 2 more reviews to go before we can actually put a fork in the DCEU and say that it's done. But we all know that it's there. We all know that it's happening. So we'd like to hear your thoughts. What do you think? What do you think? You can let us know in a bunch of different ways. One way is to email us at everything@42cast.com. Another way is to go to our website, 42cast.com, and leave a message on any of our episodes. You can also go to facebook.com/42cast, leave us a message there. You can also contact us on X or Instagram at 42cast. You can also give us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews on Apple Podcasts really do help because the more reviews we get, the more we show up on searches. So yeah, you would think if you type in a keyword that it would just come back with the keywords sort of sorted by what's the closest to the keyword. No, they don't do that. They will exclude certain podcasts that don't have a lot of reviews. Even if you typed in 42cast, I bet we are not the top thing that shows up. So more reviews, please. We'd greatly appreciate it. You can also go to patreon.com/ESO network. You can help us out by contributing there. You can get access to early episodes of the show, exclusive episodes of shows, and also to some ESO Network exclusive podcasts only available if you are a patron. So you can do that. You can help any of the shows on the network. I will say that even though we have very infrequently used the Patreon directly at the 42cast, we do have a plan for some episodes that will go to the Patreon that won't be part of the regular podcast. So I think that's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. I mean, if it happens, it's going to happen pretty early next year, but sort of a plan for at least 6, possibly 8 episodes, somewhere in that range, that are going to be exclusive to patrons of the ESO network. So continue watching this space. I'll definitely announce it when it happens. You can also find me on 2 other podcasts, Time Streams and Legendary Forces. Not going to go into the whole spiel. I know for some of you, this may be your first time listening to the podcast, but most people have already heard my spiel on those. Time Streams is a Doctor Who podcast. Legendary Forces is a Star Wars podcast. You can look up both of those shows by going to 42cast.com. The main website still has the entries for the spin-off shows. On the top bar, you'll see those. You can click on those, find out more about those shows, and decide if you want to listen to those as well. In TV watching news, Beth and I finished Only Murders in the Building. I do feel like every season is getting a tad bit weaker as they go, but I'm still on board, still looking forward to season 4. We've started watching What If. As of the time of this recording, we've only seen the first 3 episodes of season 2 of What If. Right now, I feel like this season is very weak compared to last season. Now, maybe that'll pick up. I know some people are very excited about some of the later episodes in the season, so I'm looking forward to watching those. But yeah, so far, not really impressed with What If Season 2. But for my complete thoughts, you'll have to wait for the What If Season 2 episode to drop, and hopefully that will not be the huge wait it has been for a lot of the Marvel Disney Plus content. So keep watching this space. Another thing I want to give a shout out for is the Wisconsin Comic Convention. It's only happened 1 year before, and that was in 2019, and we haven't had it any of the years through the pandemic. I was afraid that it wasn't going to come back, but we are actually going to get Wisconsin Comic Convention in 2023. It is held in Milwaukee, so that has me excited because we do not really get cons here. Most of the cons come to Chicago because Chicago is so close. And even though there are 2 Comic Cons, there's Fan Expo Chicago and C2E2, it's still a hassle to drive into the city and all of that. So I'm very excited about Wisconsin Comic Convention. Want to let everybody know about that. Watch the website, see if there are guests, see if you want to travel, because I would really love to have people who are either listeners on this show or people who have been guests on this show, like, actually show up and come to the con. So, like I said, Wisconsin Comic Convention, it's held here in Milwaukee, in the Milwaukee area. So, I mean, it'll actually be in the city of Milwaukee. But when I say here, I don't live in Milwaukee itself. But yes, we're going to have that con here. So I will definitely attend. As usual, it's kind of the question mark for me with either C2E2 or Fan Expo Chicago. Hope to be able to go to those as well, but 3 Comic Cons in 1 year is a bit much. I'll definitely be there for Chicago TARDIS, but yeah, the 3 Comic Cons, I don't know. So we'll just have to see how things go, but definitely going to be at Wisconsin Comic Convention. All right, that's a wrap for this week. Join us back next week when Naoko Takeuchi will not be joining us. And until then, this is Nathan, signing off. You have been listening to the 42 Cast, copyright 2023. Got a question for the ultimate answer? Contact us at everything@42cast.com. Theme music is Sharper Swords by Brandon Ellis. Check out more of his work at www.cityfires.com. The 42 Cast is a proud member of the ESO Network.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.